You are watching the Tuesday night edition of Chicago Corner. Woo!
Welcome to Taco Tuesday! Who wants a taco? You ready to eat some tacos, bro? You ready to eat some tacos, bro? All right, everyone. Act normal. Perfect.
Oh my God! It's Taco Tuesday!
I don't feel it's my place to tell people how much they should drink.
And there are ants in my whiskey.
They add flavor, Kira. Is that
man,
like the worm in tequila?
Have you seen my whiskey ants anywhere?
That's okay. That's okay. The show will go on, everybody.
Speaking of inflatable meat wads.
Happy Taco Tuesday.
Hit it. That's good.
Greetings, citizens of Earth, and everybody watching us on all the streaming platforms. My name is Deep Dish Pizza enthusiast Edward Heller, and welcome to the Taco Tuesday edition of Chicago Corner. I am happy to have everyone who is joining us over on Rumble joining us today. I see there's at least 9 people that in the live chat right now, which is great. If you're watching us on another platform, that's great. I know we still have people watching us on Facebook and a couple other platforms. So, but do us a favor when you get a moment, go over to rumble.com and sign up for a free account so you can watch all the videos on Rumble, and then follow us over there at Chicago Corner TV. And we got some people watching us there right now. So I want to thank you again for joining us, and I want to wish everyone a happy National Chimichanga Day. For those of you who don't know, this Mexican specialty is a deep-fried burrito, usually slathered with various delicious toppings. And it was introduced to the world, I believe, in Tucson, Arizona. So it's actually an American invention. So that's pretty cool. And a lot of you already realize that it's one of Deadpool's favorite foods. Joining me tonight, as often, is joining me Jerry Vassilatos. Jerry, it's good to see you.
Hello, Ed. And greetings, citizens of Rockfin and Rumble. Thanks for following us away from our exit, our flight, our what do we want to call it, our escape from YouTube. The overlords at YouTube who, you know, are still doubling down on what they did to Russell Brand last week. And something else I found out, I don't know if we mentioned this last Friday, Ed, but it is an interesting twist to the story. You know, they're clutching their pearls about what Russell Brand may or may not have done by demonetizing him, but they're still running ads on his shows on YouTube, and they're
course.
making money off of his videos. So if they really, wanted to show solidarity with victims, and if this was really about, the allegations against him, they wouldn't be collecting any ad revenue off of any of his videos. No one would be making money off his videos, period. But YouTube is still making money off of his videos, which just shows what a fucking clown show this whole thing is.
Yeah, it's definitely a selective editing and selective censorship going on, and so we're making a go of it over here on Rumble and Facebook and wherever else Jerry's got us hooked up to tonight.
Rumble, Rockfin, and Facebook and LinkedIn. I did put an icon. I did put a thumbnail over on YouTube guiding our regular viewers and subscribers who may not have seen Friday night show. Links to Rumble and Rockfin, and we're also streaming to Facebook. And I also put an announcement up on Twitter, but we're not broadcasting on Twitter either. I had enough of fucking Elon Musk too.
Yeah, and we're also streaming live from the website, thanks to the Rumble embedded stream. So if you can't find us anywhere else, head over to ChicagoCornerTV.com, and if you don't see the live stream running on the page, you'll definitely see links to all of our social media where we'll tell you where we are streaming. But tonight we're streaming.
We figured out how to integrate. We figured out how to integrate live chat. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to get this in before Art leaves because apparently he's at work. No, tonight's show will not be 4 hours long. And by the way, Ed, let's try to keep it under 3 because I have to clear. I have to clear our StreamYard of all the archived videos locally because I think we're almost at 50 hours of storage, and I don't want to lose tonight's show or have one of the other shows deleted for space because I haven't downloaded them yet. So I'm going to do that after the show.
Yeah, we're not doing a marathon tonight. I do have, I've got a pretty packed show if you guys saw the show notes, and it looks like our co-producer Stream Cat Oreo is messing with Jerry's camera right now.
Here he goes. Go ahead. There you go.
I love that.
It's like he's making love to the camera. He's just like,
He's like, dude, rule of 2/3. Some of you art majors and video people will get that joke.
So we do have a way to share our Rumble chat here as I'm sharing. It's different from popping up individual comments as we do on StreamYard as it's integrated with YouTube, but StreamYard is not yet integrated with Rumble. I'm sorry, Rumble's chat. And I spent most of the day today I started acquainting myself with OBS to see if we can run a little bit of a cleaner, smoother show without a lot of the hiccups that StreamYard gives us. But it's a great application. It's a great program, but it's a complicated program. You really do need a dedicated producer running things while you got people hosting. So we'll see if we can swing that or if we're just going to stick with StreamYard as our platform. But
yeah, OBS is a bit of a learning curve, and it absolutely takes a while just to get all your scenes set up properly and all the little plugins that you can get. But it's a free program, so there's a lot of people out there also using it and creating plugins like some of the ones. If you guys watch Extra Bulla or The Secret Show, I think Uncle Warren is using OBS over there. He's got all the bells and whistles there. And it's really cool. But he's got to be tearing his hair out internally to try and run his show every night. It's amazing the stuff that he's able to do.
His production values are top notch. And I was thinking about Uncle Warren and The Secret Show as I was fumbling around through OBS tonight. One of the things we love doing here is our funny drop-ins. But to populate OBS with a folder of all of our drop-ins and be able to, it's hard enough to navigate here in StreamYard. It might be damn near impossible unless there are some pop-out apps that to integrate with OBS. It's like a soundboard where it's like you see the little, I don't know if that's possible.
I was thinking the same way. I was thinking that it would be cool if StreamYard would make those things. So I wouldn't have to switch over to different setup tabs in order to play a video or to switch from your Friday setup to my Tuesday setup to play a video you have that I forgot to put on my setup. So this is, we're talking about how the sausage is made here. But we do have a lot. Yeah.
It has a lot to do with what we're doing on Rumble and Rockfin, and all those things are possible on OBS. I'm just saying it's a lot more complicated to do. So if we do figure out how to do OBS, we might be streamlining and not having as many fun. The format and style of our show and our humor might have to adjust a little bit to it, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of those troubleshooters. I always like to try and figure out how we can make stuff work, even if it sounds complicated at first. So, like, if we get like a setup where we have basically copy the same setup on both ends. So, like, you have the same setup I have, and then all we're doing is sharing videos and saying, "Look, I added this video to this thing, so add it to yours," and then.
Well, it's going to literally involve each of us having a hard drive that's identical with the same file.
True.
OBS doesn't store our videos. It actually is running off of the local hard drive or your local system. So we'd literally like have to always be, well, we'll talk about it later. We won't. And I mean, Lauren in the chat, thank you. I'll look at Prism Live Studio also.
Oh yeah, we got to look at that one too. Anyway, getting into today's show, we got a lot going on. I know Congress was screaming back and forth about the kayfabe duopoly government shutdown, and I think they passed a resolution to extend funding the government, but I'm not entirely sure, because if you ever watched one of those live streams, they pass a resolution to stop talking about the thing that they want to pass a resolution to, so that they can vote for another thing to pass another thing in order to pass an amendment or not pass an amendment, so that they can get to the other thing that they want to pass. Did you all follow that?
I wasn't paying attention to Congress today, Ed, because to my utter surprise and shock, Uncle Warren shared on YouTube, and this is the only way I found this out, that Jimmy Dore spoke at the UN.
Yes.
And after I saw the clip that Warren shared, I immediately went to Google, because in my mind, I'm like, how the fuck did that happen? Who set that up? And I went to Google News. Nothing. Jimmy Dore, United Nations.
No.
News, past 24 hours. Nothing. Nobody wants anybody to know that he went before the UN and spoke about how the United States blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And
that's
in all of the bullshit surrounding this Ukraine war and the proxy war that we're waging on behalf of NATO. So
yeah, I don't even bother with looking at Google first. I search Twitter first, to be honest with you, because people update information on there way faster than the corporate search engines do these days. And Google's definitely going to be one of those that's going to suppress that type of stuff, especially when it has to do with someone from independent media who they deem a competitor or an alternative voice from the mainstream narrative. They're not going to say, oh yeah, this guy just addressed Congress or UN, I mean.
Well,
and I'm like, yeah. So,
but here's the other thing, Ed. You know, Jimmy Dore is as reviled by the neoliberal shitlibs as Russell Brand or Joe Rogan or anyone else is. So there's, I mean, him speaking before Congress and it being ignored just speaks to how so many indie media truth tellers are being ignored or are not given any kind of attention or spotlight. And Jimmy also went on Russell Brand's show to talk with him about what was happening to Russell Brand. So, you know, and everybody, I think he had, well, no, I don't think he had Craig Jardula subbing for Jimmy while he was in New York, and he had Kim Iverson on. Mm-hmm. All the independent voices are now coming together to speak up against all this bullshit. And it's, you know, on one hand, it's like kind of cool because it's like, oh, the Rebel Alliance is forming, but still marginalized and ignored by the mainstream media that's still carrying out all the propaganda for the U.S. NATO elite global war machine. So,
yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see how many people are still paying attention to mainstream media other than like maybe my parents, you know, and they're all getting up there in years. It's like the audience for mainstream media news is probably shrinking by the minute. So I'm hoping it just does it faster so that we can get on with the rest of this stuff, because I think we're all tired of waiting to stop funneling all this money and power to like 10 people that aren't us.
Yeah.
Anyway, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So
Congress.
the government shutdown. So let's hear what CBS 2 News said about it a little earlier today.
As we reported earlier, the clock continues to tick on Congress to pass a spending bill and avoid a government shutdown.
Lawmakers have until midnight Saturday to get the deal done. Joe Donlan joins us now to tell us where negotiations stand right now.
Well, it's not good news at this point.
Yeah.
Here we go again. I guess you could say right now there does not appear to be any movement toward a deal that would keep the lights on. So far, there's just gridlock. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy tried to pin the looming government shutdown on President Biden.
The president can really come down to this and make sure government stays open. All he has to do takes some action on the border to secure it.
But President Biden released a video saying it's the far-right Republicans who are calling the shots now, and he blames them for the inaction.
I'm prepared to do my part. But the Republicans in the House of Representatives refuse to stand up to the extremists in their party. So now everyone in America could be forced to pay the price.
The House should be in order. McCarthy plans to bring 4 of the...
Yeah, pretty much.
I had to.
So for those of you just joining us and maybe unaware, we've got this thing in Congress that I like to call the kayfabe duopoly. And if you're familiar with professional wrestling like the WWE, you might know what kayfabe means. It means they're acting. This is, and they do it 24/7. They think we're all stupid. Okay. They're hoping that we are, or they are, because the honest truth is, I think half of Congress still doesn't know how federal spending works, and they keep spouting off the same garbage. But let's watch the rest of this because I'm about to blow off right here.
Are you going to pull a Jerry and lose your mind and have your head explode?
McCarthy plans to bring 4 of the 12 appropriation bills to the House floor Tuesday night, but far-right Republicans have blocked previous attempts to even begin debate on the bills.
I never give up.
Mr. Speaker, I know that, but you have the vote.
I've got a lot of things I can try.
The House bills are partisan packages that are favored by Republicans because they contain deep spending cuts, but they're also non-starters in the Democratic-controlled Senate. The Senate is preparing to pass a short-term spending bill to temporarily avoid a shutdown. So what happens during a shutdown? The federal government...
Now, hold on. We're not getting into that quite yet. Let's start with spending cuts. Why does anybody want to do spending cuts? The reason why the guys on the kayfabe duopoly red team want spending cuts is because that's their shtick. That's their acting game. They always, every time they're out of power, they want spending cuts. They want to cut government. They want to, quote unquote, drown it in a bathtub, make government so tiny you can't do anything for anyone, which of course is the dumbest thing ever, because as soon as they're in power, what do? A ton of federal spending, tax cuts for the rich buddies, all this other stuff. So where am I going with this? This is where I'm going with this. You have to understand, when people talk about where your tax dollars are going and they're talking about the federal government spending, I'm not talking about state and local. I'm talking about federal government spending, like SNAP benefits, food stamps, or military spending, or any other government program that they need to pass a bill in Congress in order to do. All of that spending, none of it comes out of your pocket. Zero. None. And so when people say they want to cut spending, but they're not specific. They just say that the government spends too much or the deficit's too big. Big, scary deficit is too big. All the deficit is just the amount of money that the government has spent into the private sector. So you don't need to be afraid of that. What you want to tell your representatives is that you want them to prioritize what is important to spend the money on. They never have to worry about where the money's coming from, and it's never coming from you. And I'll step off my soapbox, Gary, if you want to get a word in edgewise.
Oh, no, you said it well.
Yeah.
This is like federal spending and the deficit myth is Ed's wheelhouse. So, I actually learn from you when you go more into it. I mean, I think I'm kind of up to speed now on how this all works, but I know that it's as much a pet peeve with you as some other topics that we cover here on the program. So.
Well, and Jerry, it drives me nuts because, and some of you were probably watching this too. They have the live stream going for Congress. I think it was on the PBS stream or something. And they're having the debate before they go and pass these bills. And it's the same garbage. It's Republicans saying, "Oh, we're spending too much money. We're making the deficit huge." And then the Democrats on the other side, because this is their game, is that they virtual signal all the things they want to do for you. And at the same time, they call out the hypocrisy of all the things that the Republicans did when they were in power that they're now calling to cut or don't want to spend money on. So, I mean, it's a game to them.
Uncle Warren had some good comments. Biden looks like he's taking a dump. He always looks like he's taking a dump, whether he's seated or standing. And they've used spending as a boogeyman for decades to control voters. And
Yes.
It's like now we're just waking up to it.
Yeah. So, and you're going to hear politicians do it. Even politicians who should know better are going to keep calling it your tax dollars, because that it riles people up when they think, well, it's my money that they're spending on this or spending on that. And let's look at it in a slightly different way, though. Okay. Federal dollars I would call it public money is more accurate phrasing. What I mean by that is any money that is appropriated by Congress, any money that they pass a bill and then that money is created, it's put into existence to pay for something. That's public money. And I call it public money because Congress is still spending money on behalf of us, on behalf of the American people. So in a way, it's our money, but it's not the money that came out of our taxes. It's not the money that came straight out of our pockets. Okay.
That goes to state.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a different pile of money.
Yeah.
So you're paying taxes, especially you live in Chicago, you're paying a crap load of taxes. Especially and if you're living in Illinois, you're paying a crap load of taxes. That money, those taxes, those are state and local taxes. Those actually pay for things. Those are funding sources on the local level. But when you're talking about Congress, when you're talking about federal spending, it doesn't work like that. That's why when people tell you it's not like your kitchen table budgeting when you're in Congress, although a lot of people in Congress pretend it is.
Yeah, well, that's dog whistle to trigger people.
Right.
If you got to get your family budget in order, we do too. It's like,
yeah,
no, apples and oranges, dipshits.
Yeah. So all they're really doing is they use this rhetoric because they want their supporters not only to support them and keep voting for them because they can use a rhetoric to vote down things that they don't like or things they don't want to do. And so when people say that, we should expand SNAP food benefits, when we should expand food stamps to make sure everyone has food to eat, that's actually a good thing. You don't have to worry about that. It's not coming out of your pocket. It's not messing too much with the economy unless they give people so much SNAP benefits that they start causing food shortages.
Thank you, Uncle Warren. We got $1 for Ed's G-string.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's our first tip over here. That's our first tip over here on Rumble.
Does that mean I can go buy one now? I'll have to go out and purchase a G-string.
Going commando
so they can add some more dollars to it, I guess.
There you go.
But thank you, Uncle Warren. So yeah, I as soon as I find out that the government is going to start dicking around with federal spending, I'm like, this is another great opportunity to tell everybody else how federal spending actually works. So you at home can call up your congressman, your representative, your senator, and tell them they're full of shit. Tell them they're full of shit and pass the bill and fund these programs. Tell him Ed told you to do it.
Ed's going full villain with the salty language. like Jimmy said, I've gone full villain when I go off over here on Chicago Corner.
Look, and if you want to support this type of salty language, you can also support us over at patreon.com/Chicago Corner. And you can support us monthly. If you support us monthly for at least $5 a month, you have this wonderful opportunity where you, if you want to, can be a guest on Chicago Corner. I mean, it might be a blessing or a curse, but you might be able to speak your piece. You might be able to talk about a subject that you want us to talk about, or just hang out and laugh and have fun. I mean, whatever you want to do, we can figure that out. So if you're a Patreon supporter, donating at least $5 a month, you get the opportunity once a month to come on the show, speak your piece if you like. And we can figure out when that will be, and so that'll work for everybody. You have to make sure that you have like a web camera and a good internet connection, although some days we don't have good internet connection.
Come on the show and do a full network.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Precisely. I don't know if my mic was cut off there, but I agree with that man. Anyway, some of you may be aware I run a parody Twitter account called Bacon for President. He's at Bacon for Prez. If you accidentally go to @BaconFORPrez, you will somehow connect to an alternate dimension where there is a different Bacon for Prez, where Bernie actually won 2 terms in a row and everybody has universal health care. They had these weird sugar soda wars over there, and a lot of other weird stuff happened there, mostly positive things that didn't happen here. So
that's the reality where Steve Rogers returned all the Infinity Stones and everything.
Yeah, I think that is. It's also the Hot Tub Time Machine universe, I am told. Well, I don't know if he was joking, but that other Bacon for President's kind of funny too.
We have 21 viewers on Rumble right now, Ed. I've never seen 21 viewers in our StreamYard when we were broadcasting YouTube. So I wonder how many of the numbers were coming through accurately. But yeah, I'm looking at 21 watching us on Rumble, and on Rockfin we've got 5 people. So those are like great numbers to see our audience growing. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for watching wherever you are. Anyway, here's Bacon for President over on Twitter says, "How many times do I have to say this? Don't whine about federal spending budgets because you aren't, quote, taking in enough federal dollars. Federal taxes do not fund jack diddly squat. Those are 2 entirely separate functions." And again, if you want to learn more about that stuff, it's called modern monetary theory is what I'm trying to show you guys. And there is a great book, which actually, if you go to ChicagoCornerTV.com, if you scroll down to the bottom, there we got some books that we suggest, and that's one of them called The Deficit Myth by Stephanie Kelton. And she explains how federal spending works, and I was saddened to learn that half of Congress at the time she wrote the book was sadly unaware of how federal spending works. And my guess is they started out in local governments where spending works differently and never changed their tune when they got into federal government and didn't realize there was a difference. So here it is. This is the breaking news before the breaking news. How do we pay for it? On the state and local level, you raise revenue via taxes or you make cuts to other things in the budget. On the federal level, Congress passes a funding bill. That's it. There are no taxes or cuts required. All they got to do is think of the thing they want to do, pass the bill, money is created for it because they make the money. So I hope you all learned something this evening. And I think we're going to move on to the next thing. Did I have an update for that? Did I want to go into what is? Yeah, let's talk about the government shutdown for a moment here. Let's get into that. Now I had a PBS NewsHour page up where they had a link to Congress's live stream, and I don't know if they're still babbling away up. Yes, they are still babbling away. But I don't know where they left off as far as extending the government. So we may have to follow up on that on Friday with that. But for now, let's go to the CRFB webpage, which is the what are these guys? I forget what CRFB stands for. Is it Congressional? I don't know why I'm not seeing it here. Hold on a second. It's like a Congressional Responsible Budget doohickey organization. I believe that is what it stands for. There's definitely a doohickey in there. So they have a page called Government Shutdowns Q&A, Everything You Should Know. And it starts with, what is a government shutdown? Many federal government agencies and programs rely on annual funding appropriations passed by Congress. Every year, Congress must pass and President must sign budget legislation for the next fiscal year, consisting of 12 appropriations bills, one for each appropriations subcommittee. Okay, so that's basically what they have 12 spending bills they're supposed to pass before a certain deadline. And as usual, they twiddle their thumbs and wait until the last minute to argue over what they don't want. What services are affected? This is an important one because if they actually had a shutdown, there's a number of things that would stop happening. And mostly it's federal agencies would have to shut down, although a lot of the federal agencies would tell their federal employees to keep working and will make up your pay when they start the government back up, in which case I would suggest that those workers go on freaking strike. Maybe that'll make Congress move a little faster. What else? Where was I? Oh, here we go. So although many programs are exempt, the public is still likely to feel the impact of a shutdown in several ways. For example, in a full shutdown, Social Security and Medicare checks are sent out, but benefit verification as well as card issuance would cease. So if you needed services,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you know how much
services, you're screwed.
Do you know how much danger that puts a lot of people in?
Yeah, it's super reckless.
I think if the government shuts down because our Congress people haven't, found some solutions, I think that their benefits should also be suspended because the work that they're doing for those benefits is not being completed. It means all the Cadillac healthcare. Sorry, you don't get to go to the doctor. You don't get all the benefits that you're taking away from the rest of America because you haven't solved this fucking problem.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, the only way to do that is to get all their service providers to go on strike.
Well, they won't do
or to boycott them or deny them service somehow, because Congress is not going to vote to punish themselves.
Do you know that during his UN address, Ed, Jimmy Dore actually referenced how we literally need a revolution in this country to stop everybody who, our government officials that are engaging in all this corruption because it's just gone too far. I'm like, he's saying to the UN what we've talked about on the show and what's just percolating below the surface. Suddenly, we're allowed to start saying that. We're allowed to start saying that revolution might be something that has to be put on the table.
Well, we're allowed to start saying it as long as they let us keep streaming. You mean?
Well, that's why we're off YouTube now, Ed. That's why I made that executive decision. We're not going to give you the chance to take us off I mean, for the pennies that we're barely getting anyway, to like put all of our work in over there and you know, share time with our viewers. So
Yeah. So okay. So the other things that would be affected: environmental and food inspection. During the 2013 shutdown, the EPA halted site inspections for 1,200
Jesus.
different sites that included hazardous waste, drinking water, and chemical facilities. Although, you know, a lot of people are noticing that the EPA seems to be very corrupt in many
Look,
cities.
here's the thing too, Ed. That would be like business as usual for them to shut down because
Yeah.
I don't really see them doing a whole lot of shit right now anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we know that there's lead in the water in Chicago. We know that there's probably
still in
lead in the
Michigan.
water in a lot of cities, and they're really dragging their feet replacing all the water pipes.
By the way, we have some comments from our viewers and our listeners before Ed continues with what's affected and what's not affected. We've got a great comment from our friend Dominic Palella over on Rumble. In other words, Ed, Congress decides how to spend money on whatever it wants. Citizens are not allowed to be involved in these decisions, as well as any other decisions that it makes, despite the fact that they're supposed to represent our wishes. Yes, Dominic.
Yeah,
That's exactly those are the perfect words. Not in other words, those are
Yeah.
the perfect words.
Yeah, we have we have representative governments. They're supposed to listen to their constituents and do what they want, but they are wholly captured by corporate interests, and it's never been more obvious than it is now.
It's the corporate states of America. They're not representing our interests. They're representing their donors' interests. Both sides.
Right.
That's the kayfabe duopoly that Ed so properly references.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, before I continue the list of all the services that are shut down, let me tell you one thing that they're going to try and keep going: all the funding and support to Ukraine.
Oh no! You've got to be kidding me.
So
what a surprise! What a surprise! We lose our services, but we're going to keep shoveling money into the NATO proxy war machine.
Yep.
Because we want to control the flow of natural gas and every other resource that Russia was catering to, because they're actually on the other side of the world.
Yeah. Well, and also they're rushing all that farming supplies and seeds and all that other stuff because they're a huge grain supplier, Ukraine. Some people don't realize. I mean, Russia and Ukraine are both big suppliers of wheat. I don't know what other grains they grow, but wheat's a big one.
Did I just read recently also we're covering Ukraine people's unemployment benefits right now?
Oh, they're getting all kinds of stuff that we're not getting. They're going to get
a crock of shit.
It's a gigantic crock of shit. It's like that Jurassic Park size pile of shit that Jeff Goldblum talks about. Because what did we get? We had a pandemic, right? That wasn't an emergency enough to give the entire country national health care.
If anything proved that point, that was it. I mean, what else? What other kind of crisis can you be in than a global pandemic? And our representatives who've got their gold-plated Cadillac healthcare. No. It still is not enough to convince us that we need to create universal healthcare or at least a single-payer system.
And again, I'm going to say it again. We should have expanded SNAP benefits way beyond where they are now to help as many people as need the benefits right now. You shouldn't be setting up roadblocks for them. You should say, look, do you need food assistance? Check the box. Yes. Okay, you've got it. That's it. Because the federal government, they never have to figure out where the money's coming from. They can always pass a bill and go, yep, you guys can all get food assistance, go to the grocery stores and feed yourselves. There's already limits on that program that you can't buy stuff that isn't food related, right? You can't, in a lot of states, you can't even buy hot food with those SNAP cards.
Yeah.
And so why would you make people suffer like that when you don't need to? I mean, and plus, you're actually helping the economy, especially the grocery stores and any other food provider that takes SNAP when you do that. So you're helping the economy. Aren't you freaking capitalists, most of you jerkbags in Congress? or something, you want to help, you big on businesses and everything, but you're gonna
it's rugged individualism for us, Ed, but socialism
Yeah.
for the corporations.
So yeah, so I'm just, look, I go off on a rant from time to time. You guys are going to notice this if you're just joining us, if you're just finding us on Rumble. Welcome to Chicago Corner. We broadcast live on Tuesdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and we provide perspective from a Chicago point of view. A lot of times we talk about local stuff, but very often we are talking about national things because those things also affect us in Chicago, and a lot of the things in Chicago affect people in other cities. So it's all interconnected here.
We originally began broadcasting just focusing on stuff here in the city, our neighborhoods, but clearly, I mean, national talk and global talk was always coming into the conversations because it had to, and that's when we split off and just were able to brand ourselves and restructure ourselves as a worker-owned co-op and reach a larger audience. That we decided this shouldn't just be about focusing on Chicago, but it's news with a Chicago point of view. So you don't have to be from Chicago to enjoy the show. By the way, Ed, have you noticed I've been drinking coffee tonight?
You've been drinking coffee?
Yes,
and it's in a stylish mug too, I'm noticing.
It sure is. It's in a very, very stylish mug, and this is our very, very shameless plug, as you can see in the banner.
Ooh, look at that. It's amazing.
There you go. It's the Chicago Corner coffee mug.
Yes,
I'm just going to go with coffee tonight.
Okay.
And all done. So, but it was an opportunity to share, some of our handsome merch.
Yeah, I could actually, let me head over to there for a moment and show them the rest of the fun merch that we've got at the Chicago Corner store. Now, yes, we've got the classic mug. We also have our Stream Cat Oreo on his own mug. He's adorable. We've got Doppelganger Laser Eye Jerry. And there is actually a Laser Eye Oreo on the other side of that pint glass.
Yeah.
And if you become a fan of this show, you're going to be a fan of our Streamcat Oreo, and you will want this Streamcat's Oreo style t-shirt, available in light and dark colors, and also on a pint glass. And occasionally my stream gets taken over by this alien dude named Chuck, this UFO alien. And turns out he's a intergalactic pizza delivery guy. So he picks up pizzas from Earth because apparently they don't make pizza on any other planet in the galaxy. Pizza is specific to Earth. So he goes, picks them up from here, and he delivers them to other places in the galaxy. So we let him sell one of his t-shirts on here too. It says Chuck's Intergalactic Pizza Delivery, featuring the finest pizzas from planet Earth, as seen on Chicago Corner.
He might have to update that shirt into Chuck's Interdimensional Pizza Delivery, depending on the disclosures we start to get from Congress.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Are they extraterrestrials or are they interdimensional?
Well, we'll have to see if
or not.
Chuck might need to have a separate shirt for that as well, because that's a completely different market that he would have to be marketing to, because sometimes when you switch dimensions, you end up in a dimension where pizza is the life form. So
like Pizza the Hut.
Yeah, and as you'll see, we have some people who watch us in other countries, like Big Mr. Firebird, and so we made a version that is able to be produced in England, in the UK or Europe. And so if you're in the UK or Europe and you want one of Chuck's Intergalactic Pizza Delivery shirts, you can order one currently in the store. If there's another design and you're watching us from another place on the planet, let us know if you want one of the designs that is going to be too expensive for it to be shipped from the US to you, and we'll set something up for you.
By the way, I want to let everyone know that Chicago Corner merchandise in the merch store is Mayor Brandon Johnson approved.
It is?
It is.
Okay. That's our story, and we're sticking to it.
You see him there?
I see him.
There we go.
I'm wondering if we should put him on a shirt.
Yeah.
Although we were gonna do a WWHWD shirt. Is that
What would Harold Washington do? Yes, in the spirit of our dearly departed heroic mayor Harold Washington. Yeah, every time we read one of these bullshit stories from Chicago or even nationally, we ask ourselves, what would Harold do? WWHD. What would Harold do? Just 4. There you go.
That'll work. That works for me. All right. So where was I? I left off on the all the stuff that's closing down article here.
Right.
So we were at environmental and food inspection. So yeah, so they're not going to inspect your stuff if the government shuts down. That's dangerous as hell. The national parks will close. So that there's more than 400 national parks. So that would be bad for people who are going on vacation and wanting to visit a national park during a shutdown. And so all the visitor services would shut down at those places, which means you couldn't go to a national monument either. And which means, especially if you're going to DC, they would probably rope off a ton of stuff in the National Mall. If I remember correctly, I think they had to do something like that the last time they had a shutdown. Air travel. I think the TSA would be an issue unless they found a loophole to keep them working during a shutdown. Health and Human Services, it says the National Institutes of Health would be prevented from admitting new patients or processing grant applications. Okay. So, which also would affect the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF, TANF, which was like the cash portion of welfare that some people can qualify when they're unemployed or in need of assistance like that. I remember when I was unemployed, I qualified for the SNAP benefits, but not the TANF. So it's like there's a certain requirement. Like, it's always red tape with these programs. There's usually more than they need to.
We have some comments on Rockfin. Dick on Rockfin joins us. I can't pop it out, but he says no Americans as a group are screwed. Not Americans, but no Americans.
No Americans.
All gain-of-function DNA engineering grinds to a halt.
Yeah, that would be one of the positives,
Yeah,
in
one
my
of the
opinion. Yes. Speaking of another benefit, the Internal Revenue Service. It says, as a result of funds in the Inflation Reduction Act, normal IRS operations would continue. Ah, you bastards.
Of course. The IRS never sleeps.
Yeah, except when they sleep. Damn. And that's, of course, right? So Ukraine gets their money, IRS keeps working.
Of course, IRS and Ukraine, those are the priorities of our federal government. Oh, I just figured I can also do a pop-out screen and share the Rockfin chat too every once in a while. So that's cool.
And let me close this one off with the SNAP program, food assistance, also known as food stamps. It says, though funding for SNAP program is mandatory, the ability to send out food stamp benefits could be affected by a shutdown, since continuing resolutions have generally only authorized the Agriculture Department, or the USDA, to send out benefits for 30 days after a shutdown begins. So yeah, so if a shutdown happened and you didn't get your benefits in time, some people might get screwed by that. So that sucks. So government shutdowns are bad, and they're mostly caused by whiny kayfabe politicians in Congress.
Speaking of kayfabe, it looks like we've got some Melty Joe kayfabe to talk about.
We do. We do have some Melty Joe kayfabe to talk about. And let me
Suddenly,
close the tab here.
suddenly, Alzheimer Joe is a union guy.
Yeah,
Now,
surprising.
I talked about this in a prior show. He completely fucked the railway workers because railway operations impact the entire country. I'm certain that if he could, he would probably tell the UAW workers to get the fuck back to work too. But that's private enterprise, so he can't do that. So it affords him an opportunity to act like he's pro-union and go out on the picket lines and act like he's pro-labor when everywhere else he's been anti-labor.
Yeah. So here, this is Chicago Sun-Times says Biden joins picket line, urges striking auto workers to, quote, stick with it.
I'd like to stick something with him.
The president's appearance on the picket line, a first for a sitting president. Yeah, this is technically a historical event because he's the first sitting president to actually join a picket line.
Never forget Barack Obama during his first term always promised if workers and laborers went on strike, he'd go find his comfortable walking shoes to walk the picket lines with them. And then before his second term, when it was teachers in Wisconsin that went on strike, hoping that he would show up, to support them, nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen. That's when I realized Obama is full of shit, and I didn't vote for him the second time.
Well, you know what he did?
That was the break. That was the turning point. What did he do?
Barry found his comfortable walking shoes and he gave them to Joe.
Loafers.
Appropriately named. I need you to go and do a kayfabe over
now, Joe. I need you to
UAW picket line because we have
Joe.
to make it look like we support workers.
You got to get out there, Joe.
That's my really bad.
And every time I try to get my Obama, forget it. Let's go on with it.
Let me drink.
So, Joe, I got some comfortable loafers here. Most of America thinks you're loafing on the job, so maybe you can put these loafers to good use and go pretend that you are in support of the UAW strike because, Joe, there's an election coming up. And so long as we've got you as our puppet in the forefront while I run things behind the scenes, we got to make sure to sew this up. There you go. There's your Obama.
Oh, hey, that looks like me on that news story. How could he be there if I'm here?
Now, Joe, get back to sleep. We'll promise you a long nap time after you go make this appearance.
Yeah, all right, I'm being ridiculous now. Okay. So, first for sitting president was a most significant demonstration of his pro-union bona fides. Bona fides? How do you say bona fides?
I say bona fides. You say bona fides.
I'm not sure what I say on that one. Either's fine. A record that includes vocal support for unionization efforts, vocal support at Amazon facilities and executive actions that promoted worker organizing. He really hasn't done much for unions. Most of the time he's busting them.
Yep.
So I mean, it's annoying. Let me read the rest of this article here. President Joe Biden grabbed a bullhorn on the picket line Tuesday and urged striking auto workers to, quote, stick with it in an unparalleled show of support for organized labor by a modern president. Donning a union ball cap and exchanging bumps, Biden told United Auto Workers strikers that you deserve the significant raise you need as he stopped in the Detroit area just a day ahead of a planned visit by former President Donald Trump, the front runner for the Republican nomination in next year's election. That's why Joe's out there, because they knew Trump was going to go out there.
Yeah.
This is all about getting votes. This is all lip service so that he can get support or the appearance that he supports this strike. When the truth is that's the last thing he wants to do. He just wants people to get back to work.
I remember last last campaign season when he was running and people were calling him out on a lot of this stuff. He told them if they didn't like it, he should go vote for somebody else. Those were Biden's words. He literally was like spitting at the voters that he expected to just roll over and vote for him without earning their votes. Hey, Jack, you don't like it? Let's do push-ups and see who's right. And if you don't like it, don't vote for me then. Don't vote. He literally said don't vote for him.
Yeah, and I didn't.
Well, I didn't either. I didn't vote last election. I didn't vote the election with Hillary and him. No, maybe I did. Did I vote for a third party?
Was that the election I left blank? I think because we didn't have a decent third party candidate at the time.
Yeah, I'm not rewarding either our oppressors with a vote because they're the lesser of two evils. Voting for the lesser of two evils is still voting for evil. So
yeah, it's
all right. You know what? If you don't vote for a third party, you're letting these guys win. That's one of the narratives I've seen flipped on social media. You know how they always say if you don't vote for the Democrats, then if you vote for third party, you're throwing away your vote. The flip side is if you're voting for a third party, if you're voting for one of them, you're throwing away a vote for a third party. If you're voting for Biden or Trump. So
if you're voting for anyone in the duopoly, you are wasting your vote.
You're wasting your vote for a third party. That's right.
But look, if we're to have a democracy, it means you vote for whoever you want. So you can vote for whoever you want. And if you don't want to vote, if you're going to vote shame, understand that you don't own my vote. People have to earn my vote. Candidates can't just expect to have my vote because they're not the other guy.
Excuse me.
No deal, no wheels, workers chanted as Biden arrived at a General Motors parts distribution warehouse, one of several facilities that has been targeted in a widening strike now in its 12th day. No pay, no parts. Despite concerns that a prolonged strike could undermine the economy, particularly in the crucial battleground state of Michigan, the Democratic president encouraged workers to keep fighting for better wages at a time when car companies have seen rising profits. And I'm just going to pause from the article just to say, look, it's not just the auto companies. There's a lot of corporations right now that are operating under the assumption that when their profits are down, that they have to make cuts in their employment instead of realizing that they have to keep paying people a living wage. If your profits are down, but you're not taking losses, you're still making profits. That's what that's the disconnect with a lot of these arguments. Where it's like, oh, well, our profits aren't as big as they were before. You can't expect to make continuing profits over and over and over and over again. You keep squeezing your employees down. Eventually, there's going to be a problem. And this is what happened with UAW. You asked them to make all these kinds of sacrifices. Then what'd you do? I think there were stock buybacks. There were CEO raises and all this other garbage instead of giving your workers more of what they earned.
We're in the death rattle of late-stage capitalism. Dominic shares the one reason why workers need to have unions is self-evident. It's because the people elected to represent them do not want them to have a living wage or care if they work in an unsafe environment. So, but naturally too, Dominic, somehow or another, mainstream media is able to demonize the unions. And you want to know what's really fucked up about that? Any news anchor that you see on a mainstream news program, whether it's Rachel Maddow or Sean Hannity, they're performers that have unions representing them to make sure that as personalities, they're getting their millions of dollars and their bonuses and everything else to go on the air and spread propaganda. Their unions are fine when they serve them, but when they're on the air, they need to make sure to demonize and vilify the unions that are doing exactly what Dominic just shared. They need to do because they don't have the protections of our representatives in government because they're only serving the fucking donors all the time.
And that's enough from the Sun-Times article. So I'm going to, because we know that Joe Biden he's basically been given the script, or they are automating the script through that brain chip that they installed in him through Elon Musk, to say all the things that people want to hear supporting unions right now. So, but what we really need to do is hear from the unions. So here is a tweet from Luis Feliz Leon, who has a video clip from the UAW President Sean Fain. And here is him speaking to the crowd.
So today, 8 years later, we find ourselves here again with the arsenal of democracy. It's a different kind of arsenal of democracy, and it's a different kind of war we're fighting. Today, the enemy isn't some foreign country miles away. It's right here in our own area. It's corporate greed. Yeah. And the weapon we produce to fight that enemy, it's the liberators, the true liberators. It's the working class people, all of you working your butts off, all those lines to deliver great product for our companies. That's how we're going to defeat these people. That's how we're going to defeat corporate greed, is by standing together. Yeah. So today.
Yes!
So there's Sean Fain, president of UAW, saying it like it is. It's a class war. And we're fighting it right now. They're fighting really hard right now for it. And we'll see what happens.
Dick on Rockfin has something to share to this story also. Dick says, very few of the auto-related workers are UAW. All the parts are not unionized, and only Ford, GM, Chrysler is UAW. No, none of the foreign-owned plants are unionized. Why is that? I smell a rat. Everything Joe Biden is involved in is a setup. Red? Very interesting, Mr. Dick.
Well,
may I call you Mr. Dick?
Yeah. Well, I can say that, I'm not following the ins and outs of this strike as closely as some of the other independent media outlets are. I know Indie News Network has been really on top of this story, and I highly recommend people follow them as well. We don't know how much of this is going to get co-opted by politicians or corporate controlled leaders or what have you. But if we don't have these types of events happen, we're never going to get the other events happening in other sectors of the economy. And so, yeah, it's kind of weird that they didn't all strike at once. And I did read that it's a strategic situation that they're doing here. It's because you only have a limited strike fund in your union. So there's only so much money you can put towards supporting the workers in the union until eventually you start to run out. And what happened was, I think, was it someone had passed a thing where people who are on a strike have to be paid unemployment benefits while they're on strike. I don't know if it was a specific state or there was an executive order. Maybe that's the executive order they were talking about. But on top of that, what happens is when you only have a couple locations that go on strike, and if you do it strategically to where it's a parts manufacturer or something that has to provide parts to a different location that isn't currently striking, then what happens is what we saw happen is that layoffs start happening. That the companies start doing layoffs, and people have mixed messages about whether that's a good or a bad thing. But if you're laid off, you can file for unemployment. So that's one of those things where you can make that strike fund last longer, and maybe you can, if you target certain areas, certain divisions, then you can bring the hurt longer and perhaps have more leverage for your strike demands. I hope that made sense.
Totally.
Okay. So there's that story. Did I have another story? Oh, I do have another story. This is one I just saw today. And Some of you may be familiar with a thing called net neutrality. And the FCC had basically disabled it during the Trump administration. There was this one guy named Ajit Pai, who I think came from Verizon, and basically took away all the protections that the FCC was supposed to provide.
And you pronounced his name wrong. You said Ajit Pai?
Yeah. How do you pronounce it, Jerry?
I always pronounced his name from the moment that he canceled net neutrality as a shit pie, because that's what he is, a shit pie.
I stand corrected.
Talk about an opportunity to really label someone what they are.
Yes. So here we are. The FCC plans to restore Obama-era net neutrality rules, to which I say, what the fuck took you so long?
But keep in mind, too, Ed, net neutrality was suspended. I think it was at the end of Obama's term, wasn't it, when a shit pie came in? I think that's when it happened, right before Obama left office. So this happened on Obama's watch, I think.
Well, this article's blaming Trump, but it said the protections were nixed in 2018, so it might have been an overlap there.
Yeah, it was. But Obama, because of that overlap, they had an opportunity to prevent this from happening. Because I remember at the time, I was like tearing my hair out. How can Obama let this guy who's been appointed to his position in the FCC suspend net neutrality? It was insane at the time it happened. I remember everyone was talking about it and how quickly it was forgotten, unfortunately. And yeah, Trump could have done something about it, but he didn't, because it wasn't a priority for him. But you know, it's affected everybody that uses the internet with the throttling and the what was it? The limitations in traffic to certain websites if you weren't paying. If you were big business, if I'm remembering it correctly, and maybe it's in the article, but let me really quickly make my point here. Net neutrality meant that everybody had equal access to the internet. Certain websites weren't slowed down because they weren't pay to play on whatever providers that they were using. And with net neutrality suspended, it basically enabled businesses that were more prominent and had more money to spend to pop up at the top of search engines, or to be the main sites that you could visit, as opposed to other sites that weren't corporate, you know, big business, global behemoths, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, it's something like that. Let me get into the article, because I think they do mention it for a moment. Federal Communications Commission plans to reinstate net neutrality protections that were nixed in 2018 during the Trump administration. Now, see, like, you're correcting me that maybe that happened just slightly before. And they're just misremembering it. Restoring those Obama-era rules has been, see, that's why they're doing it. They're calling them.
Look up while you continue the story. I'm pretty certain this was right as Obama was going out, so there was an overlap. Yeah. But I remember at the time I was furious that Obama wasn't doing more to prevent the suspension of net neutrality.
Yeah. Restoring those rules has been on President Joe Biden's agenda for years. Yeah, no, it hasn't. But a deadlocked FCC has prevented that from happening during his time in the White House so far. Now, one day after Ana Gomez was sworn in as the third Democratic member on the FCC's 5-person panel, the agency is pushing forward. You're telling me it took them this long to get another person in there so they could do this?
When did Trump took office? In 2018, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a shit pie revealed the draft of his plans to dismantle the Obama-era net neutrality rules in November of 2017. So,
yeah, or it was 2017.
2017, and the election wasn't until 2018, right?
No, it was 2016.
Oh,
yeah,
the election that Trump won. No, he didn't win in 2016. No, Trump won in 2020. Yeah, so this was during Obama's second term. November 20th.
No, because
Trump wasn't president in 2017.
Yes, he was.
No.
Bernie was running in 2015, then Hillary cheated Bernie, then Hillary lost to Trump. That was 2016.
Okay, you're right. I'm looking at it right now.
And then the Cubs won the World Series.
I can't believe that much time has passed. Trump inaugurated on January 20th of 2017. For some reason, it felt like he took office like right before the pandemic started in 2020, but that would have been the end of 2019, December.
Yeah,
2019.
the pandemic started in 2019.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then Donnie Shortfingers lost to Melty Joe, and then Melty Joe did just a shittier job handling the lockdown. Gave us $1,400 instead of $2,000, so he still owes me $600. And
okay, but so here's yeah. now that I'm reminded, okay, doing a little bit more Google searching, this is where my my outrage came against Obama. He was an Obama appointee. President Obama appointed him.
Yeah.
And yeah, it did carry over when Trump won. But he was an Obama era appointee to the FCC.
Yeah, well, and I'm not shocked by that at all, because we all know that when Barry got elected the first time, he installed Citibank into his cabinet. So he was very pro-corporate and just, was very sly about it when he snuck everybody in and revealed basically he was a moderate Republican.
Here's his history. A shit pie was designated chairman by President Donald J. Trump in January of 2017 and served through January of 2021. He had previously served as commissioner at the FCC, appointed by then President Barack Obama and confirmed unanimously by the United States Senate in May of 2012.
Yeah, so he was a sleeper agent.
As a commission. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so getting to the point, so the FCC finally appointed another member so they could make the effort to establish net neutrality.
I knew there was a way to blame Obama for him.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're all to blame because they're all working together. And I keep telling people, look, I call them the kayfabe duopoly because, like, in some of you older members and some of you people who are familiar with comedy sports know the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals, which are the team that they travel with everywhere they play. And the Generals are supposed to lose every game.
I'm looking at Uncle Warren's comments in the chat. Thank you for correcting me. Trump won in 2016. Biden won in 2020. You know what it is, Warren? Time has been passing so fast these past 10 years for me as I get older. It's easier to lose track. It's 2023. And I guess because Trump was so identified in the year of COVID, 2020. For some reason, I was thinking he took office before then. So anyway, thanks for the correction.
So here's a section where they explain net neutrality. When net neutrality rules are enforced, internet service providers are not allowed to block or give preference to any content. They can't throttle access to specific websites or charge the likes of streaming services for faster service. They must provide users with access to every site, content, and app at the same speeds and conditions. Advocates tout net neutrality protections as the foundation of an open and equitable internet. So Jerry was right. You get it. It's basically it's an even playing field, fair playing.
I had the broad strokes there, but good thing the details were in there.
So FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel, a long-term supporter of net neutrality rules, announced a plan to restore the protections on Tuesday. And if you guys go to the description in the show notes, I have a link to her speech that she just did at the National Press Club. I believe it was today or yesterday. I think it was today. She says, we will need to develop an updated record to identify the best way to restore these policies and have a uniform national open internet standard. Amen to that. The aim is to largely return to the successful rules that the FCC adopted in 2015 when President Barry Phone Call was in office.
Barry Phone Call. I haven't heard that before. I like that nickname.
I call him Barry Phone Call because of he done Bernie dirty in 2020.
Hello, is this Pete?
Super
Pete Booty Juice? Pete Booty Juice. I'm going to ask you.
It's pronounced booty gig, sir.
Booty Juice, I want you to coalesce around Alzheimer's Joe and Amy Senator. What was she? Clubfoot? Amy Clubfoot?
Staple Checker?
Whatever. Why should Staple Checker Clubfoot? I want you and a Pete Booty Juice to coalesce around Alzheimer's Joe. But
what's in it for me? What's in it for me, Mr. President?
I'll be running stuff behind the scenes once you guys help.
Can I like trains. Do you like trains? All right, I'll make you Secretary of Transportation. And we all know how well that worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, he took a long extended family leave with his husband to adopt a kid while what was it? Ohio was melting down with the train accident. What else?
Palestine. Yeah,
Palestine. Yeah, and before that, when there was the transportation crisis with the airlines during COVID. Yeah, he literally entered office and went on family leave, went on vacation. Motherfucker.
Well, I mean, look, everybody should get family leave in their employment.
Not when you start a job.
When you work in federal government, that's a different situation.
You don't take your leave when you just begin your job. And I don't care anybody who's, you're anti-family. Yeah, everyone deserves it. He didn't. His husband did not birth the child. That was a choice. Okay.
I mean, okay. That's a fair argument.
Okay.
That's a fair argument.
It's not like he knocked up his wife and there was no control over the timetable. Okay. The guy was entitled. Oh, I'm transportation secretary, but I got to take some time off now with my husband to raise the child that we just adopted. Motherfucker, that's not the time to adopt your kid when you just ran it for president and were, rewarded for your compliance and helping direct your voters to Joe Biden because you're both serving the same shit lib mentality. Anyway, identity politic shit lib mentality.
Yeah, the biggest problem with this is that he was given a position he had no business being given in the first place.
He's not. He's in no way qualified for it, Ed, and he proved it. It was specifically. It was, what do they call it? It was
it's a quid pro quo.
Well, not just a quid pro quo. It was like when they just give you something. It's like it was a participation trophy. Is what they gave Pete Booty Juice. A participation trophy. You decided to get in line behind Alzheimer's Joe, Mr. Booty Juice, and we will give you a participation trophy issued by the Democratic Party for your cooperation and compliance in helping us elevate this candidate who clearly his brains are melting out of his ears.
It's getting better.
Dick on Rockfin's got a comment for us. Let me bring this up. He shares Mayor Pete has his own international airport, South Bend International, which has never had a commercial international passenger to the mouth. What are they flying into South Bend? Oh, we've actually talked about what's happening in South Bend, Dick. They've been probably transporting immigrants and other undesirables out of South Bend Airport. Wasn't our prior colleague, Mr. Cabello, helping share some of the information on what was happening?
I think he was the one that discovered that. They were deporting people out of South Bend.
Yeah. Mayor Booty Juice couldn't. People in South Bend were like, "How the fuck does this guy rise up to run for president? Our town is a shithole, and this guy's going to convince the national audience that he's qualified to be president because he's gay." That was his platform. He was an identity politic candidate because he was gay and because we want to embrace diversity, which we should. That's all he ran on. And then the stories came out that he's ex-military. He's probably a CIA spook. And that he stepped forward during that first primary. I forgot, was it Iowa or New Hampshire, where he had the gall to step forward and claim that he actually got more votes than Bernie Sanders. I forgot which primary it was in. But
that was Iowa.
Iowa. Yeah.
That one was totally rigged.
I mean, it was, not only was it rigged, he didn't have the votes, but he was like a fucking sociopath and he was on camera and he wouldn't answer questions about it. I mean, the guy is an empty suit of entitlement because of his identity is what it was.
Yeah. So moving on to the next story.
Ooh. Dick on Rockfin also shared. I won't pop it up, but that's what she said in
It was
regards
already
to his
there.
comment. The real scuttlebutt is that the sperm donor of Mayor Pete's baby is Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know if you're serious or not, but ooh.
It's a bad joke.
Okay.
All
Rhodes
right. We're
Scholar
moving on to
Plus has his very own CIA rendering International Airport. President of the United States Quali. Yeah, you're right about that, Dick. Okay, I'm sorry, Ed.
Yep.
I'm handing
Thanks,
it back
Dick.
to you.
Thanks for participating in the live chat over on Rockfin. And we know we don't have a whole lot of people chatting at us on Rockfin, but we appreciate everybody who is interacting with us on this program. And again, I want to welcome everybody who is now finding us on Rumble, which this is our second show, our first show this week, our first Tuesday on Rumble.
In solidarity with Russell Brand.
Yes. And so we're no longer streaming on YouTube. We will copy.
We're no longer premiering our shows on YouTube. We're thinking about syndicating after the show, maybe sending
it's going to be an archive.
Sure yet. Yeah.
An archive, it'll be an archive at best. So we're basically relegating YouTube to Odyssey status.
We'll see. I mean, a part of me doesn't want to give YouTube anything from this point out, given all the problems we've had for the past 3 years with unfair copyright strikes, for fair use clips.
Maybe we can make.
Go ahead.
Maybe we can make a clip show just to tell people to come find us at Rumble. And then we'll put that in as the latest one in the autoplay. Something like that. So rumble.com/user/Chicago Corner TV. If you don't have a Rumble account, it's free to sign up. You don't have to subscribe to anything monthly or anything like that. You just sign up for a free account and then go follow us on Chicago Corner TV on Rumble, and you can watch us live there. And if you're ever looking for us and you can't find us, head to ChicagoCornerTV.com. We've got links to all of our social media. We have little suggested links, useful links that might be helpful to you. Links to our shop, our new merch store over on Fourth Wall, and we even when I remember to set it up, I got us streaming in there too, so you can actually watch us on the website. So here we are in the next story. I'm going to probably fly through this one. Cook County judges talk about their first week without cash bail. The world is looking at us. Despite glitches in other courthouses, the first week of bail reform in Cook County went relatively smoothly. And who is that? That's a picture of Judge Mary Marubio, presiding judge in the pretrial division of the Circuit Court of Cook County. And that's going to be an important point. Pardon my tongue-tiedness here. It's going to be an important division pre-trial, especially now that they can't just, yay or nay on the bail anymore. Now they have to decide, does this person need to be held or not? And some of those requests actually have to come from the prosecuting attorney. So for people to say, oh, well, then just everybody's going to get out of jail now, that's kind of how it's supposed to happen, unless you're an actual obvious danger to being left, running around pre-trial. So most people are supposed to be able to, you go to the hearing, they decide whether you're going to be held for bail or you're going to be held or not. And then you go home or whatever and wait for trial. And then the judge will usually give you an instruction on things that you're supposed to do and not do while you're waiting for trial. Like, don't do all of those crimes that you're currently being tried for while you're out waiting for the actual court date. And so, yeah, I can see how that can be a problem. But let me read some of this article here. Cook County Judge Charles Beach took time to explain why he was ordering the man before him jailed. This is your hearing today, so I want you to understand what this hearing is all about, Beach told the man in his 20s who was charged with having an AR-15 style rifle, a 45-round magazine, and body armor. Under reforms that went into effect last week, Beach could not set a cash bail. He could either order the man released with conditions, like electronic monitoring, or hold him for trial if he thought the man posed a danger or would not show up for hearings in his case. The man was already on probation for another gun charge, so Beach ordered the man jailed. There are not conditions I believe you can comply with, the judge told him. Despite glitches in other courthouses, the first week of bail reform in Cook County went relatively smoothly. But hearings were slower than usual, marked by extensive arguments from prosecutors and defense attorneys as they tested guidelines under the Pretrial Fairness Act, which made Illinois the first state to completely eliminate cash bail. The old bond hearings were fast, and they were designed to be fast, said Beach, a supervising judge of the pretrial division who once worked as a private defense attorney. Now the law's backers hope there will be more time for judges to consider whether a person should be kept behind bars, separated from jobs and families, and not simply because they cannot afford a cash bail. In other words, and I'm saying this, the article's not saying this. In other words, now rich people can't just pay their way to bail out of a situation before their trial. They actually have to. Yeah.
That's what a lot of this was about. That's what a lot of this was about too. How if you're rich, if you're poor and you've committed a nonviolent crime and you're thrown in jail because you can't make bail. Now, the other thing too, Ed, is everyone's twisting this around and saying, where's the mayor? Where is the Cook County Attorney General's office in letting violent offenders out with this no bail plan? But what they fail to realize is it's up to the judge. The judges are the ones who determine whether someone's supposed to get cash bail or not based on their previous history of violent offenses. And the problem was judges were not looking at previous histories of violent offenses to deny those cash bail who didn't deserve cash bail because they were actually a threat. Now, is this uneven? Maybe in some ways it is, in a way to try to make it right for those that are not violent offenders, a fucking drug crime, shoplifting, whatever. The issue is those people that were engaged in minor crimes that were not violent, being thrown in jail and not being able to make bail because they had no money, which just made their situations even worse. So,
yeah. So, I mean, we got the gist of this article, but I wanted to contrast that with a situation that didn't go as well. So I just read to you an example of how essentially it's supposed to work. Okay. Right. Now I've got an article from CWB Chicago. It says judge refuses to jail Chicago man accused of shooting dog having 50-round ammo magazines.
That's the guy that you throw in jail with no bail.
Yeah, you would think.
And you didn't jail him. It's the judges that are the problem. And there have been a couple times in the past before our previous elections that I think we talked about judges. And the Girl, I Guess Voters Guide during Chicago municipal elections would go through the history of a lot of judges. When you go into the voting booth and you see all these judges that are up for retention, it's like, how the hell do you know which ones are doing their jobs and serving the public properly, or they're just asleep at the wheel? So you do need to research your judges. And there are so many judges to research that thankfully, there are some here in Chicago, like the Girl, I Guess Voter Guide, that actually does the research and tells you what different judges how they've properly, equitably served, or if they're absolute fucking train wrecks that need to be voted out of office. So you can go into the voting booth with some kind of perception of looking at that long list of judges, and instead of going glassy-eyed and just clicking yes, 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 because you don't know what their histories are, looking at your cell phone or bringing in a piece of paper that you had the research from those that actually did the due diligence, vetting their backgrounds, like this asshole.
So I read the example from a Judge Beach's pretrial situation, and I had read and I had shown you that photo in that same Sun Times article of Judge Mary Rubio or Marubio. Okay, I didn't realize it's the same judge that's in this story from CWB. So this is interesting that she's in that article as well. But here, a Cook County judge rejected a prosecutor's request to jail a Chicago man who allegedly shot a dog as a threat to public safety on Monday. Instead, Judge Mary Marubio sent Derek Bender, 19, home with a nighttime curfew and orders to stay away from the dog's owners, court records show.
Can I throw something in here, Ed? When somebody shoots an animal, a dog or a cat or any other animal, they are literally more vulnerable than human beings. Now, was the dog barking? Was the dog a threat to him? I don't know. I'm going to guess it wasn't. I'm going to guess that this was a sociopathic kid who decided it's okay to exercise his sociopathic tendencies against a helpless and vulnerable creature. Those that engage in violence against animals are much, much higher on the spectrum of characters that you've got to look out for and keep away from the regular population, because they're the ones that don't have any kind of a conscience in deciding to engage against violence against an absolutely vulnerable creature. I mean, look, not to condone, going against human beings who are also vulnerable, but human beings can defend themselves. Animals, in this case, can't. So it's like, that's literally a signal. I think psychologists have said when you see young people engaging in violence against animals, those are the ones that become serial killers. Those are the ones that unchecked are the ones that are the real threat to the rest of society.
And that's assuming it was an intentional shooting. So let me read and see what the more details are to this one. Chicago police initially responded to a shot spotter gunfire detection alert in the 5000 block of South La Crosse late Sunday night. Before they arrived, dispatchers radioed that a 911 caller reported that a man had just shot his dog one address away from where the shot spotter indicated a gun had been fired, according to a Bender CPD arrest report. The officers saw two men matching the descriptions of the suspects and tried to talk with them, but the men ran and two officers chased one of them, allegedly Bender. The arrest report said Bender ran behind a home and threw a backpack over a fence before the cops caught him. The backpack contained a loaded 9mm handgun equipped with a laser sight, loose ammunition, and 250-round drum magazines.
So the dog was just practice before he was going to use those weapons and ammunition, maybe against a human target.
Yeah. A 42-year-old man identified Bender as the man who shot his American Staffordshire Terrier in the head. Oh, man.
Jesus Christ.
The report said. Police did not say if the dog named Remy survived. The arrest report does not provide many details about the alleged shooting. In a press release, CPD said Bender recklessly discharged a firearm, striking a dog.
No, prosecutors, it was reckless about it. It was intentional. Okay? When you're running around with ammunition in a bag like that, you're looking for targets. And you know what, Ed? Let me just rewind a little bit. When you said, when you mentioned a moment ago, they weren't sure if it was intentional against the dog. And just the fact that he's running around with a bag of ammunition and these weapons, beyond shooting the dog, he's clearly a threat. Wouldn't you say?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Prosecutors charged Bender with aggravated cruelty to animals, aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, and reckless discharge of a firearm endangering others. And they asked Judge Marubio to keep Bender in jail as a public safety threat, court records show. Marubio nixed that idea. She released Bender with a curfew and told him to check in with the court's pretrial services division and to stay away from the victims, according to the clerk of court's file. Last month, Chicago police last month, it gets better. Last month, Chicago police arrested Bender on a different set of allegations. A 52-year-old woman told police that Bender pointed a gun at her, and a CPD surveillance camera operator saw him in possession of a firearm with an extended magazine, according to the August 17 arrest report. Officers couldn't find the gun he was accused of having, even though the surveillance camera saw him with it, right? The report said Bender had a key fob in his pocket for a stolen BMW that was parked nearby. This guy's a piece of work.
This guy's a piece of shit.
Prosecutors charged him with possessing a stolen motor vehicle and an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. They dropped the stolen vehicle charge 1 week later and dropped the aggravated assault charge on September 7th, according to a court file. Why?
This is such a crock of shit.
I mean, is this what's the deal with this guy? Is he an informant? Are they trying to track down a drug dealer?
If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place.
I feel like this is half a story.
I have some commentary I want to share from Dick on Rockfin. Dick says, do you think, no, Chicago is quite bleak. Maybe he was putting his dog out of its misery and would turn it on himself before laser blinding the pilot of chemtrail jetliner flying overhead. This is the Hollywood story.
Well, you know, I mean, well, when the writer's strike is over, maybe somebody will.
One thing we know, if you're black, you'll be railroaded sooner or later. Blacks can't get away with the government corruption or having guns. I think it is safe to say this is true. Oh, it's very safe to say it's true. It seems you got to convict someone for a crime that isn't a crime of being armed, which is a constitutional right most Americans assume for themselves.
Yeah.
Well, but this guy was a threat, though, too, Dick. I think we can agree on that. How can you convict someone for having weapons? They sell them at gun shows. Well, we need to have stronger laws regarding how easily guns are sold at those gun shows so that assholes like this one can't wander the streets with bags full of weapons and ammunition, shooting their neighbors' dogs. Oh.
There's a lot more about intent, I think, in these types of situations. But I mean, if he stole a car, I don't know why they dropped that charge.
And again, this is the judges. Stop blaming the state's attorney's office for the cash bail issue when the judges have the power to look at the history, look at the charges, and put the real violent offenders in jail, as opposed to, you know, someone who's selling, you know, weed out on the street. That's what the elimination of cash bail was really trying to address, because they're relying on the judges to do their jobs right, and they're not, as this story demonstrates.
Yeah, so as long as I was on the CWB Chicago webpage, I looked to see what other stuff was going on. And I saw this next story coming up as soon as I close all these extra little ads and window things that they like to throw on these websites to slow everything down. And here we go. Oh, and actually we got to play that one clip. I don't know if I have it online. I think we do.
I look at this town and I don't like what I see anymore.
Okay, another one from CWB Chicago. Solo Chicago cop chases armed robbers across the city. Quote, I'm not going to terminate myself until we crash. I think that's him talking to his dispatcher saying he's not going to stop going after these guys until he absolutely has to.
He's
now, yeah, sure, there is that part of it, but also there's a reason why he was going after these guys. And I'm going to read the story here so we can get a better sense of what's going on, because in some ways this has to do with the fact that the police are intentionally using different types of pursuit ordinances and stuff as an excuse to not do their job. And so here I'm going to read the story. Regular readers of CWB may find this hard to believe, and no, we haven't been hacked. A Chicago police officer engaged a carload of armed men in a high-speed cross-city chase Sunday night after the group suspected of at least 9 holdups committed 3 robberies in Lincoln Park and on the north side.
Okay.
Sunday night's first robbery was reported around 11 p.m. outside the Armitage Brown Line station in the 900 block of West Armitage. A 42-year-old woman told Chicago cops she was walking on the sidewalk when 4 men got out of a white SUV and took her purse at gunpoint, according to a CPD media statement. A near North 18th District tactical sergeant spotted the white vehicle minutes later on Halstead Street, and the chase was on. "I'm not going to terminate the chase myself until we crash," he radioed as he pursued the car toward the United Center. "It'd be great if I could get some help. I'm all by myself." He's requesting backup.
Okay, so let me also say this in relation to what I said a moment ago. I have a lot of respect for this guy deciding to give chase and get to these guys. And yeah, I wish that they would have sent him back up, but this is one of those judgment situations. Are you going to like hit another car during your pursuit? I would hope not. Here's the other thing I think of, Ed, when I read these stories. If you know that there's a cop in pursuit of a vehicle, right, on whatever road, freeway, whatever, you've got cops ahead of that pursuit that you could where were they on? They were on the expressway? Roadblocks, yeah. Roadblocks or go block exits or roads with cop cars that are like ahead of the chase. In this high-tech world of law enforcement, if you know the cop is like chasing them here and you've got cops over here, you get ahead of the problem along with providing them the back. So
yeah, let me get a little more of this story in before I throw my my 2 or 5 cents in on the rest of this. And there's the rub. Despite the cop's efforts, putting his career at risk should anything bad happen during the chase, he had no backup to help him. No police helicopters were up. The state police weren't in the area. Worst of all, perhaps, as the sergeant chased the car through a West Side police district, one of that district sergeants ordered his units not to pursue the robbers. I haven't seen one squad. Yeah.
Is this to make Mayor Johnson look bad by saying this happened? Dude, I mean, look, there's obviously a lot of bad cops in the CPD that if they haven't left already, like they promised, or gone to Florida for DeSantis's offer to relocate, they are standing down and allowing bad things to happen so that it reflects badly on the mayor, as if the mayor has anything to do with it. This is where they're supposed to do their jobs.
Yeah, some of it's a little bit of a revolt based on how the pursuit policies are written, because it has to do with them taking accountability, and as we know, cops don't like to do that. So here we are. Worst of all, perhaps, as the sergeant chased the car through the West Side Police District, one of that district sergeants ordered his units not to pursue the robbers. "I haven't seen one squad car," the sergeant radioed around 11:22 p.m., about a minute before the crew bailed out near 15th and Drake. They ran from the scene, and the lone sergeant, soon joined by local district officers since the chase had ended, searched for them. No luck. The group got away. Chicago police are investigating 3 additional armed robberies that occurred around the same time as the one near the Armitage CTA station. At about 11:15 p.m., a 31-year-old man was robbed while walking to work in the 1700 block of West Hubbard, police said. 3 men got out of a white SUV and took his phone and wallet at gunpoint. In Lincoln Park, a 56-year-old man and a 60-year-old woman were robbed by 4 men who got out of a white SUV. Let's see. A woman was robbed at 1400 block of North Halstead, blah, 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 blah. The robbers were described as black men wearing masks, carrying multiple handguns. Okay. And there was another story I saw where apparently 2 off-duty cops also got robbed. I don't know if it was from this group, but embarrassing. So here's my 2 cents on this. Those pursuit policies were written for a reason, but also they were written for sergeants or police captains or whoever to make judgment calls, right?
That's the word.
Discretion, right? And then, and I don't see police having any kind of problem trying to outmaneuver people when they are out protesting, using their freedom of speech rights, when they go and do those kettling maneuvers and blocking off streets and all these other things that basically cage people in to where they get arrested. So I don't see there being a whole lot of excuses here for why the police couldn't go and help this guy, other than they're choosing not to do their job.
Yeah. They're absolutely standing down so that when bad shit, I remember like a year ago, Ed, you were telling me all this rise in gun violence in Chicago. What if the police are actually standing down? Or what if they're actually like allowing guns to go to criminals so crime gets so bad so they can use it for political ammunition against, at that time, Mayor Lightfoot? Or maybe this time Brandon Johnson. That's a great Hollywood potboiler thriller that I'd love to write with more of your input.
It's just not shocking at this point to think that there are people in the Fraternal Order of Police that are choosing to just not do their job.
It's not public service to them, Ed. It's them against us. They are above us. They are better than us, and they consider themselves as the judge, juries, and executioner, or in deciding to analyze the law, not by the law, but the way that they see fit.
They're looking for any kind of loophole excuse to not actually protect and serve the public,
because we don't have their backs, is what I've been told by some people.
Well, you got to have ours. It's a two-way street, guys.
It's a two-way street, and it's one that also involves accountability, integrity, and reasoned judgment. Not just because I've got a badge and a gun, I can do whatever I want, and how dare you question my authority or how I decide to perform my job that I've got, because it's got really great benefits and really high pay, not because I want to serve the public.
Yeah, so there's that story that I thought, like, what? It's like we know that there's those guys, like, what, X number of cops leaving for Florida, whatever. See you later. If you guys are going to act like this, maybe you should go too. We'll get a fresh batch of cops that we can actually have helping the public instead of serving themselves.
Two suggestions. DeSantis is offering relocation bonuses, and I also hear Streets and Sanitation is hiring here in Chicago. So
yeah, there's plenty of jobs. If being a cop is too hard for you, there's lots of other jobs you probably would be qualified to do.
You don't have to do it. You should not get into law enforcement for the benefits and the pay. You get into it because you want to serve the public good. I've spoken with one police officer who was sharing with me the reasons that they got into law enforcement was because of the benefits and the pay. And I was so sorely disappointed, because when I asked the question, why did they get into law enforcement? And this is someone I respect. I mean, I don't want to paint a bad picture of them, but I was hoping to hear, well, yeah, they really had a conscience and they wanted to serve, and I'm sure that they do serve the public, but right out of the gate, it's like the benefits and the pay were better than working TSA at the airport. So.
Yeah, so it's not like these inaction things that you're doing, blue flu or whatever the hell you're probably calling it internally. You can't compare that to a thing like the UAW strike or the writers' strikes. You guys are getting paid well. You're getting paid really well. You got good benefits. You guys got pensions. Lots of people don't have pensions. So I don't understand. It just seems like you're just making excuses because you don't like accountability.
Yeah.
So that's that story.
Oh, Kathy's in the chat.
Yeah, hey Kathy.
I was wondering if she found her way to Rumble.
She found it.
She can't get closed captioning on her phone. I don't know if Rumble does live
live captioning
during a live show. I'm not sure if they do or not.
I don't think the software does, but I know the desktop Chrome browser, we got instructions on our website on how to turn that on. I don't know if there's a similar way to do that on a mobile device.
In any event, Kathy, instead of looking at Rumble or Rockfin, if wait, is the closed captioning work if they go to ChicagoCornerTV.com to look at the embed there? Do you think the closed captioning will work through the website?
That's a really good question, Jerry.
Because you can look at the website on your mobile phone, Kathy, if you're not home yet, and we can find. I mean, we won't do it now. Let's continue with the show, but we'll look into it and see if we have an answer.
There's no button for closed captioning on there that I can see.
Okay.
But like I said, it would be a browser-based live caption function that's built into the Chrome browser that people can turn on. It's just a thing that a lot of people aren't aware of when they are watching on a computer with the Chrome browser. You can actually have Google try. That's one of the few things Google's good for, is translating live captions. Okay, where are we at? Oh, we are at the part of the show. Oh, we got the Migrant and GardaWorld updates here. And this is an update from earlier today.
Close to a single-day record. A total of 7 buses carrying migrants arrived today in the city of Chicago. CBS 2 investigator Megan Hickey joins us live from the South Loop with the latest growing numbers and the impact on volunteer groups as well. Megan?
Right, Joe, we just spoke with a man who arrived here from Venezuela with his wife and 14-year-old son. He said it took them almost a month and a half to get here and was very grateful for all the help that they've received so far, although he said it was a harrowing journey. Meanwhile, volunteers are telling me they need all the help they can get. Edgar Palmera told me he had no choice but to make the long journey from Venezuela. He said he came to work for a better future for his family, something he couldn't do back home. He told us he was one of about 40 to 50 new arrivals on his white charter bus who were dropped off in the South Loop and met by OEMC staff.
So 40 to 50 times 7, so about 350 people, give or take. I'm doing math here in my head. Is my Swiss cheese brain still doing math correctly?
I am not good at math either, so I'm going to go.
So so if there's roughly 50 people on each bus and 7 buses, so 350 people. Yeah. So that just today we got 350 more migrants coming in, presumably mostly from Venezuela.
Yeah. That's the country that everyone's always referencing. Fleeing U.S. policy there, and as we'll get further along in this story, it's a different story for migrants coming over from Ukraine. Surprisingly.
Today's 8 buses are in addition to the 60 buses that have already arrived so far in September. 281 buses have arrived since August 31st of last year. As of this morning, there were nearly 9,000 migrants in city shelters, with just over 2,000 still awaiting placement. OEMC tells me 380 new arrivals are waiting at O'Hare, 16 are waiting at Midway, and 1,656 are waiting in police stations.
We are tired. We have exhausted a lot of our own resources.
That's where Erica Villegas from the police station response team has been focusing her efforts. She says they've felt the influx at every district. Currently, the 9th district is housing the most people, 212 as of this morning.
8 buses, I believe, are arriving today. We were notified that this morning. So everyone's scrambling a little bit, trying to figure out what we're going to do.
She says viewers can help by donating to volunteer groups. The best donations for people to drop off at police stations are water and fresh fruit. While they appreciate clothing donations, those are better to drop off at the free stores across the city.
Free store at 32nd and Halsted. There are several free stores around the city. And so connecting with some of those nonprofits that can better use some of those donations, so then we can get them to the right people, depending on their personal situation.
Now, we just learned that 7 buses have arrived so far. That 8th bus, which would have been a record, has been postponed until tomorrow, and we'll have links on our website for how viewers can help if they are interested. Now, OEMC tells me that as of today, we have received at least 15,000 new arrivals in total. Live in the South Loop, Megan Hickey, CBS 2 Investigator.
Thanks, Megan. So, yeah, so they're still coming. We got to help them. It's the right thing to do.
Along with our homeless population. And I'm not disparaging helping Ukrainian migrants either. But if we can help one group, we can help them all.
Yeah, I just thought, we need to be aware that there is some situations going on here regarding a little bit of where the hell did I put that thing? Oh, the double standard. Here we go. I'll do that one next. There's a little bit of a double standard here, and we're going to talk about that right now. This comes from the People's Fabric, who are pointing out a WBEZ article.
That's what I was talking about. This is I'm not surprised or shocked by this, but I shared this. Well, yeah, clearly I shared this with you earlier, and I'm like, this has to enter the conversation about everybody disparaging and vilifying the Venezuelan migrants. Take it away.
So I'm not gonna read the article, but I will read from this excerpt from People's Fabric, and it says. The other aspect is the narrative that's created. For instance, as many Ukrainians roughly have come to the United States in the last couple of years, as have Venezuelans. There is no narrative in the media that the Ukrainians are creating a crisis. Why not? Because the government is quietly integrating them into the society, giving them work permits, giving them social benefits, and they're, in essence, melting into the U.S. population.
Could it be because they're white?
Because they have pale complexions, perhaps, Jerry?
There were some people in this Twitter thread, though, that claimed, well, it's a different situation because Ukrainians already have family members over here that they're coming. Not all of them do. Stop the false equivalency, because it really is about setting up a narrative against people of color.
It's priorities and
based on race, ethnicity, and culture.
Yeah, and politics. Where did I leave off? Oh, yes. There are more Ukrainians that have come to Chicago in the last year than Venezuelans, but somehow we see the Venezuelans in the police precincts. We see them in the shelters. We see the government claiming it has no ability to deal with them. What's the elephant in the room there when you're saying the Ukrainians are being treated differently from Venezuelans? Why the difference? U.S. immigration policy has always been more political than it is humanitarian. And so there it is. And there's a political need to say that Ukrainian migration is not a problem. There's also a racial component.
Boom.
As Jerry said, there is a populace in the country of white supremacists who have no problem bringing in more Ukrainians, but do have problems bringing in more Central Americans, Venezuelans, Asians, and Haitians, because they fear the demographic transformation of the country.
And that's exactly what it's about. Sorry, it is. Nation of immigrants, biggest melting pot in the world. It used to be, not anymore though, especially not for people of color. But you come from the Ukraine, and you find your wife on UkrainianDolls.com and run for president. That's okay.
And this all circles back to my first story when I told you all how federal spending works. Because if they can just decide that they're going to spend these federal dollars to make sure that these Ukrainian refugees are getting all the support they need, they can do the same thing for the Venezuelans and all the other immigrants and all the homeless people and everyone else who needs help, because federal tax dollars are not coming out of your pocket. Congress just creates them when they pass a bill.
You know, as you move along, there was a funny video. I'm wondering if I can find it in relation to that little joke I just made a moment ago. Yeah, let me share this real quick. Let's just take a quick little entertainment break, shall we? As I share this video regarding, you know, the Ukrainians that are prioritized as opposed to people of color from South American countries or elsewhere, Haitians. And all right, hang on a second, it's loading. You'll get a kick out of this. This was a meme that I found at the height of the whole Barbie craze. All right, here we go. See if it loads. And it does have a little Ukrainian element to it.
The Ivanka doll, a brilliant businesswoman and fashion icon like myself. This is my favorite doll. You can pose her in all kinds of ways. The Don Jr. doll. He's a businessman and an outdoorsman and a strong advocate for our great Second Amendment. Don't ever let the Democrats take that away from you. Here is a doll that represents my other son.
Wait, did it start at the beginning with the comment on Melania, or did it jump forward?
It kind of jumped forward.
Okay, let me start at the beginning, because
the
the gag is at the beginning of it. People are gonna be like, well, what was Jerry talking about with the Ukrainian reference? Let me go back to the beginning though. Okay, let's see if it plays from the beginning now.
Present to you the Trump family collectible Barbie dolls, a symbol of power, success, and of course, tremendous style. The Melania doll captures the essence of my beautiful wife. In real life, I actually ordered Melania from a website called UkrainianDolls.com, but it turns out she is not Ukrainian, but some other kind of Russian. The Ivanka doll, a brilliant businesswoman and fashion icon like myself. This is my favorite doll. You can pose her in all kinds of ways. The Don Jr. doll. He's a businessman and an outdoorsman and a strong advocate for our great Second Amendment. Don't ever let the Democrats take that away from you. Here is a doll that represents my other son. We've got the whole Trump family here. I even have a doll for Marla's daughter, looking very beautiful, probably more so than in person even. And here is Ivanka again. Each set comes with two Ivankas, which is a personal fantasy of mine, actually. I designed her to be perfectly anatomically correct. And for the most handsome doll, here we have the Donald doll, a true representation of leadership and charisma. You've never seen anything like it, believe me. Buy the whole set, and you'll also receive the Mar-a-Lago Dream House with working elevator and secret compartments in case you need to hide any classified files. Act now. This offer is going fast.
All right, there's our little entertainment break.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, the whole conversation about Ukrainians though is what reminded, it's a little trigger in my brain about, you know, Trump and ordering Melania from UkrainianDolls.com. You know, she came over here on an Einstein visa, Ed.
They always find ways to let people come in from other countries legally by, you know, depending on who you know.
If you got the cash,
or
got
the cash,
the bread.
You know, otherwise they have like ridiculous rules for people coming to visit this country. I guess I could talk about this for a second. A guy I work with, I won't say who, had his wife was coming in to visit from out of the United States. And apparently, when you visit from other countries, and I don't know if it's specific countries that this limitation is for people coming into the United States, when you visit, you are limited as to the time frame in which you can come back once you visited the first time. And for them, there was like a 2-year gap that you have to have. So like you come to visit once and you go back home, you can't come back for 2 years.
Yeah, it's the green card visa. And I've actually known people who've come back, and they come back and forth a lot, but sometimes there's a long period of time they got to stay out of the country before they come here and can stay for any long period of time on a work visa. Kathy says Melania was a genius for marrying the Donald.
Well, okay. I mean, you know, You take
So
that
back
for
to
what it's
your
worth.
friend's story. And
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, the story is that apparently they didn't wait long enough, and so so she was stuck in customs overnight. Apparently, they treated her well, but like they had to put her back on a plane and send her back home, and so they didn't. She wasn't able to even contact them until she was back on the plane to let them know that what was going on. And so it's just a stupid way that and apparently in her country, they don't care so much about that stuff. It's like anybody could come to their country, but it's like United States, they have to lock it down for certain situations. But they're selective about who they decide can just come and go, like celebrities can come and go. Typically they get these work visas. Like you said, they're green cards that have other limitations.
Something struck me the other day, Ed, with how quickly we talked about Biden last week, ushering through some quick, I guess, lifting of rules, basically allowing, I think, a first wave or a certain wave of migrants to be able to get jobs and visas and everything else. I'm thinking to myself, when everybody brings up the fact that, well, they're not coming through legally. They're not coming through legally like migrants did in the old days, the immigrants. Okay, because it's harder now. Why are we making it so hard for people to come into this country? What kind of drain on resources are they when we know the types of jobs that they will gravitate towards that are unfortunately jobs that companies here in the United States don't want to give natives a fair living wage to? Is there really a downside to basically trying to overhaul the whole immigration process by which it's easier for people to come in so that we're not using this as a way to divide people? That's what I'm thinking. It's like, Joe Biden did it because elections are coming up and because there is a crisis of incoming migrants, right? My question is, why is immigration so hard? Why is it so hard? I really do not believe immigrants are a drain on our country, our economy, or anything else. I would think that based on the history of this country as being a melting pot and a nation of immigrants, you would probably want to lean more on, I don't know, extolling the virtues of that and continuing to make it an opportunity, the best country in the world where, you can follow the American dream. It's so complicated. That's why you've got waves of migrants coming in the way that they are. Just my personal reflection on it. Why is it so difficult? Wouldn't it make things easier and stop the divide and stop all of this? They're from Venezuela, or look, I'm fine helping migrants from Ukraine, but I think that if we're okay and acceptable of helping, lighter skinned migrants from European countries, then we got to exercise the same civility, the same understanding, and the same respect for migrants from south of the border or elsewhere. So
and I think it's a mixed bag of reasons why they make it so difficult. Some of it is just plain old xenophobia. Some of it is political dog whistles. Some of it is whether it's as intentional or not. There are drug cartels that move drugs back and forth.
You can't keep blaming the drug cartels. It's like,
no,
well, that means we're going to punish everybody because of the, what? Then get the drug. The DEA is supposed to be able to do what they need to do against the drug cartels without deciding to punish everyone else that's fleeing the violence in those countries or the destabilization because of U.S. policies.
And of course, and remember I mentioned how some talking heads or some politicians are wanting to go to war with Mexico, basically to take on the cartels.
Great idea.
And so, I mean, that could be something we see in our lifetimes. If the wrong people get their hands around some type of military action. Anyway, I've gone off the rails. Let's get back on the rails and
7
talk
more buses
about
arrived today. Right.
Yeah. So 7 more buses arrived today. So the migrant issue is not going away anytime soon, and we need to make sure we help these people. And I had a couple links here. Let me see which one makes sense to bring up first. I guess we'll talk about GardaWorld first because it's just a slight update on GardaWorld because we had talked about what a terrible idea it was, and we still don't know who specifically gave Brandon Johnson this idea.
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna speculate, Ed, because of the existing procurement arrangements and agreements that the state has with GardaWorld. I think that probably has a lot to do with. I'm speculating. This might have to do with some influence on why Johnson ran right into it, even though it's a horrible idea as far as where that money could go for sustaining longer term solutions as opposed to short term ones where once the money's burned, it's gone on these temporary tents.
Yeah, so I'm not doubting that that's likely the source. It's just I wanted to get a little more specific on who's talking to Brandon, who said, "Well, we can do this right away. We should do this." And Brandon Johnson is like, "Oh, what a great idea that is," because they're winterized tents, which we all know is bullshit.
I don't want to sit in any kind of a tent during a Chicago winter.
Yeah. Now, look, they may get some protection during some cold and rough weather, but if it gets sub-zero outside, those tents are not, especially with the heaters they said that they're supposed to have, they're not going to get more than 40 degrees warmer than whatever the outside temperature is. So
dude, I'm in a 2-flat with drafty windows. And unless I crank up the heat and pay people's gas $250 a month because of my drafty windows, I'm freezing in here. So don't tell me these industrial grade tents are going to keep these migrants safe from the outside winter elements. I just don't buy it.
Yeah.
And they're also a short-term solution.
So this article is titled "What to Know About GardaWorld, the controversial security company tapped to build migrant tent camps." This comes from Block Club Chicago. A plan to build shelters in Denver was nixed last minute over criticism of GardaWorld's alleged immigrant detention centers in Texas and Canada. Mayor Brandon Johnson's administration has come under fire for hiring a multinational security firm with a checkered history to build tent shelters for migrants stuck sleeping in police station lobbies. City officials quietly signed a $29 million contract with GardaWorld Federal Services and its subsidiary Aegis Defense Services on September 12th for the firm to, quote, provide temporary housing on an as-needed basis for asylum seekers, procurement records show. The contract comes after Johnson proposed to move migrants from police stations into winterized base camps. A similar deal with Garda to shelter migrants streaming into Denver was abruptly halted by that city's mayor earlier this year, after community organizers and officials lambasted dire conditions alleged at immigrant detention centers built by the firm in Canada and Texas. Taking a breath here. Do you have anything to comment on that? Some of this is kind of repetitive from what we talked about before. This is
last time.
But this is confirming, and just recently, that he could have checked with other cities that have used their services and said, how did it go? Were there any problems? Should we bother with this, or should we look for other situations or arrangements? So, okay. The Denver Post reported GardaWorld worked with the federal government for a center at Fort Bliss Military Base in El Paso, Texas, in 2021 for thousands of unaccompanied migrant children crossing the border. The Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services singled out substandard living conditions and insufficient training for staff at the facility, saying children suffered panic attacks and other issues while facing long waits to see a case manager. A BBC investigation found allegations of sexual abuse and rape of children, COVID and lice outbreaks, a lack of clean clothes, and hungry children being served undercooked meat at the Fort Bliss facility. This gets worse and worse.
We went through a whole litany of problems with this company last show on Friday, and I guess they're just digging up more dirt on them. And why wouldn't Why wouldn't you vet this company and find the stuff out that we have to have it reported after the decision was made?
Yeah, why does the media have to do that for you? In a statement, the Block Club, a GardaWorld spokesperson said the company was not responsible for, quote, case management at the Fort Bliss facility, and its operations are routinely audited by authorities for human rights compliance. Sure, they're not taking responsibility. Though, didn't we just recently find out that essentially what they do is they hire local contractors to manage these locations? So this is how they're weaseling out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't us, it was these guys. We categorically refute all allegations of unsafe practices or neglect in any GardaWorld operations or activities, a GardaWorld spokesperson said. And flip into a photo of Brandon.
Great comment from Dick on Rockfin. Immigrants are finding the USA isn't as nice as they were led to believe. El shithole country. Attention international passengers, be sure to check your human dignity at the curbside drop-off.
Well, it does depend on what kind of immigrant you are, because the Ukrainian immigrants are probably doing okay.
Yeah.
Relatively. Let's see. At another immigrant detention center, I don't know why they're calling it that, but some of our older people don't.
It vilifies them. It basically it's an assault on their dignity, and it dehumanizes them. So we don't have to look at them as human beings, and we accept the fact that we're essentially putting District 9, we're putting a refugee camp, with tents, without the dignity of like being in an actual existing standing structure.
Yeah. Apparently, some of our older people have a problem with it phrased that way. But the reality is, a lot of migrants need to stay in these sanctioned facilities or designated places for where they have to stay in order to get like certain types of assistance.
The language is
forward.
intentional. The language is intentional.
So some of them are, so they're sort of forced to stay in these places instead of searching for other options until they, get the support to be able to do that. Whether that means that they, get permission to actually find work, or whether they're given other types of assistance, like housing assistance or whatever. At another, quote, immigrant detention center, allegedly run by GardaWorld in Quebec, Canada, immigrants inside went on a hunger strike 3 times to protest, quote, life-threatening conditions during the pandemic's peak. And one immigrant later died after being found in, quote, medical distress, according to a report presented to Denver's mayor by the nonprofit American Friends Service Committee that cited Canadian media outlets. So Denver, at least, did some research at a certain point where they could decide to back out of the situation. I'm waiting for Brandon to be a little more proactive on this stuff. I don't feel like he is being.
No.
Because someone should be addressing this to him, and he should be responding to this.
It seems his spokespeople are not available for comment as often as Lori Lightfoot's spokespeople were unavailable for comment. We saw that in a lot of the reporting last week.
Yeah, they
on
have
the
to
same
change that.
matter. Yeah.
And I can understand why certain people, might be getting defensive about the situation, because maybe they don't like what's going on either, but they're not quite sure how to proceed if he's not going to engage.
Yeah.
So look, the party's over. The honeymoon's gone. The party's over. Brandon Johnson, you are the mayor. You are accountable for the things that you do or don't do. And when the media comes to you and says, look, this is some information we found out about GardaWorld, you should be responding to this really fast.
Yeah.
We need to be hearing from you like yesterday on this.
I've noticed in the news too, Ed, he's doing a lot of hoity-toity public, high-profile public appearances with a lot of business clubs and corporations and companies here. I saw on social media a friend of mine posing for pictures with the mayor, talking about how personable the mayor was. And I was thinking to myself, this friend of mine, who I have a lot of respect for, but it's funny. I don't remember them, supporting Brandon Johnson, during the election, but now that he's at the business club and rubbing elbows with people and, foundations and companies and businesses in Chicago, now suddenly, that he gives them the time of day to talk to them. Now people are like, lighting up around him. So I don't know. The jury's still out for me. But yeah, the honeymoon's definitely over. But we need to see more. We need to see some serious course corrections as far as like public engagement regarding this stuff.
Yeah, let me finish this article. So there's a couple paragraphs left here. Nonprofit researchers did not find publicly available contracts for GardaWorld's operations in Fort Bliss, but connected the firm to the location through LinkedIn profiles and job listings, said Davi Sherman, author of the report. Okay. The lack of publicly available information about this company's migrant sheltering operations is equally as troubling as what the company has been alleged to be involved in, Sherman said. The GardaWorld spokesperson said that the company has worked with Canadian border agents in, quote, assisting individuals as they navigate the immigration process with oversight from the Canadian government.
Can I throw in here really quickly before you go further? Because it's definitely very relevant. Dick on Rockfin shares tense. Dick on Rockfin shares tense. USA is as cheap as a $2 bill. At least in Auschwitz, they built barracks. But I guess construction material was less expensive back then. All that Polish woodlands. I think Chicago Corner is right on to really ask who told the mayor to do this. Someone is behind it, FEMA or something. Johnson is getting Chicago going. Year-round camp is a fun start.
Yeah, look, I mean, I like camping as much as the next guy, but this, I mean, even if this was a temporary solution, it should have gotten it going months ago, and focus on the temporary part, which I should switch to actually another post here from friend of the tweets. I guess I'll call him Anthony Moser, says, there's a lot of focus right now on getting people into shelters, but we need a good, clear, scalable process for getting them out of shelters and welcoming them into our communities. Otherwise, every new shelter is just a place to contain people, and they will keep filling up.
As we are serving our Ukrainian friends.
Yeah. He says, we need to offer immediate shelter for the short term. We need to create paths to quickly transition into supported, stable, long-term individual housing. And we need those pathways to accommodate the long-time unhoused residents of Chicago, too. That's it. That's it right there. He said what needed to be said there.
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, is, Brandon Johnson, what's your plan after your winterized tent scheme here? What are you doing next? You got a plan next? You going to talk to your friends in the DNC who are going to be having a convention here and asking them, hey, look, we got migrants who are different, are like, slightly more tan than your Ukrainian friends that you've given plenty of funding to. How about you throw some funding for us to help the other people too? Talk to Chewy Garcia. Talk to Dick Durbin. Get them on the same page. And wake up and stop lying to people about how federal spending works.
Dick on Rockfin's got another legitimate, relevant concern.
Yeah, he's on fire tonight.
He is. Thank you, Dick. I'm creeped out because people will disappear into these camps and never be seen again. I'm half considering to apply for a tent and find out what they do to me. Probably recruit me for a cruise line job.
Well, Dick, I don't know if you're in Chicago, but I do know they are going to hire contractors. They're going to hire people to try and manage these tents for whatever services they will be providing. And so maybe that's the way that people can help right now, is to get involved in the process, so that if people do start falling through the cracks, at least some people that watch this program will be able to raise the alarm and say, look, some shit's going down and you guys need to know about it.
It appears Constitutional Conservative has rebranded, Ed.
Oh, he has. Okay. So wait, no, come on, Lou. You have to tell me right now, will you or will you not punch Nazis?
Yes. Yes.
Because if the answer is no, you got to change your name back.
No, actually, well, I don't have any, there's no question in my mind that Constitutional Captain America would absolutely punch Nazis. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's on board with us with that.
Now,
but this whole, you've been bamboozled by another community activist.
He does this every time.
I know. Yeah. Well, he will embrace, he will then embrace and claim that Paul Vallis had a better solution. As Paul Vallis is running around Twitter right now, forgetting that he lost the election, thinking he's still relevant from his palatial estate in Palos Heights, trying to remind people like he was the better solution, when I think we talked about this last week. Paul Vallis wouldn't even house them. He put them on buses and shipped them probably back to the borders, what Paul Vallis would do, instead of embracing and trying to solve the problem, as apparently we have no issues with where it comes to Ukrainian migrants coming here, displaced Ukrainian migrants. We should be helping them all. Period. Constitutional Captain America. Come on.
And look, and I understand cities that are getting migrants transported into their cities and using up city resources, and it feels like they're focusing all on the migrants and not on the other people in the city, including the homeless people. And to be fair, you have a point. Okay. But what I would say is they're people just like everybody else. Right. We got to help people as much as we can. And to blame city governments for being sanctuary cities when the federal government should be stepping up and helping out a whole lot more than they are. You're blaming the wrong people right now.
And Dominic speaks to that in the comment prior to Constitutional Captain America. You know what? Chris Evans would slap you, Lou. Anyway, Dominic says there are probably a dozen community organizations that would have advised the mayor. He obviously did not listen to or respond to them. Clearly.
Yeah. And Captain America would probably go and save all the migrants from the
That's right.
Tents.
Absolutely. You know what? You should call yourself constitutional super patriot, Lou. John Walker, the neoconservative thug who briefly served while Steve Rogers was absent. I think that's more who you should be.
Can I recommend, though, that you rename yourself Constitutional
conservative?
No, just Constitutional.
Oh, constitutional conservative. That would work.
Yeah, because he's Lou.
That's right. My cousin Lou. Thanks for coming back, Lou, and joining us on Rumble.
Yeah, thanks for watching us on Rumble. Make sure to follow us. Hit the thumbs up thing on there. Apparently, that's important. Tell everybody else to follow us on Rumble. And what do we do? Share, subscribe if you've got the cash. I think you can even tip us cash in the live chat here now.
Uncle Warren did earlier. He tossed $1 up on stage. So
yes,
if you want to toss $1 or a shekel at us, click that little $sign button. And by the way, thanks again to all of our regular Patreon supporters: Dominic Palella, Kathy Powers, Dr. Howard Ehrman of the People's Response Network, Shane Coughlin, Derek Graham, and of course, delusional cousin Lou Kutramanis. I don't think I missed one.
Yeah. And if you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/Chicago Corner. Be a monthly supporter to Chicago Corner.
Only $5 a month. And you can come on the show. No one has taken us up on that yet, but come on the show and have a platform, co-host with us. I was actually talking to Shane Coughlin about that, Ed, and I think Shane will be coming on soon when he's got some time. I regularly talk with my friend from New York, New Jersey, New York, Shane from KRTD Media. And I was talking about the fact that like none of our patrons have come on the show to co-host. And he said, well, he'll come on sometime. I'm like, well, you should, because Shane's got some really, I think, valuable insights on a lot of stuff that we talk about here regularly. So hopefully we'll be seeing Shane soon.
Yeah, and we can talk about the kayfabe duopoly and all the insider crap that we hear about from time to time, and the really weird pivoting that the Democrats like to do on stuff. But where was I? We were talking about tents. And then I had Anthony.
There's going to be a protest. Yeah, there's a protest coming up before we get to our last.
Oh, that's the one. Okay, yes. I got to bring that up on the screen. Let me get that.
What are you looking at? Look at him staring me down.
All right, so
attention.
So on Twitter, there's an account called Chicago Migrant Mutual Aid. And here they are on the screen. There's a link to this tweet in the show notes. If you check the show description, there should be a link to our show notes, and you can follow along with the stuff we're talking about on the show. And sometimes I have articles in my show notes that we don't always cover or we only briefly touch upon, but there will be links in there when we remember to put the links in, and you can always look at that stuff at your leisure if you want to learn more about stuff if we've only touched on it for a minute. So
you can't. Are you able to get a time off from work ever, Ed? Can you put in for time off?
I can try.
I was thinking this is Friday at 4. I wonder if we go down there with our cameras together and just talk to people and record. I mean, I can go down by myself. It'd be better or easier or actually more enjoyable if you were able to join me. I don't know for sure you can with your work situation. Get off earlier, take a half day, but this would be the perfect thing for us to go out and cover in person if we could. I'm not promising either, but let's talk about it.
I am currently scheduled to work on that day, but I might be able to get off early. Hit me up early on that day, and I'll let you know if I can.
We'll see if we could do this, because this is about what we're talking about literally every show. The migrant crisis in the tent city, and this would be a great protest. Take us back to our roots on Chicago Corner, going out and covering protests like the General Iron March and some of the other, and the Adam Toledo protests that happened 2 years ago when we took stewardship over Chicago Corner, covering protests and civil action.
Yeah, so here's Chicago Migrant Mutual Aid, and they are having a gathering at Daily Plaza on Friday, September 29th at 4 p.m. Central Time to demand that the city cancels the plan to put migrants in a refugee camp. Let's be there for each other and demand proper housing for all. And here
all. They should have put the all in caps, not just the migrants, but all.
Yeah, it says the sign here, and you can find they have, like, you check their timeline, and if you want to print posters and help out with this thing, they have different types of graphics and stuff you can download and print out. But here's one of the posters. It says, "Freedom, justice, and housing for migrants. No tent city. Protests at Daily Plaza, 50 West Washington Street in Chicago. Friday, September 29th from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Chicago's mayor is planning to house migrants in a tent refugee camp built and run by GardaWorld, a security contractor that ran terrible migrant detention centers. The tents are not rated for Chicago winters. They will be freezing. People will die. It's hyperbolic, but it's very likely. We demand that the city cancels the contract with GardaWorld, provides adequate safe housing to the migrants and unhoused people in the short term." I'm glad they included "and unhoused people." "Invest in long-term solutions that will ensure that every Chicagoan is housed." And they have it translated in Spanish. I'm not going to read the Spanish. If I was drunk, I might, but I'm not going to. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. It's close. It's a little past 10 p.m. Central Time. And I think that was it. That was all the stuff I had, right?
No, there was
Yeah.
one more story. Voldemort.
Oh,
Alderman
yeah.
Moore.
It was
One
really
last story.
quick. Aldermort Jim Gardner gets.
They're turning up the heat on him, which I'm really happy to see.
Yeah. So Aldermort Jim Gardner violated the First Amendment by blocking critics on social media. Federal judge rules. Let me close that. Okay. A jury will now determine if Gardner will pay damages to the critics who sued him.
He looks like Nosferatu there. He doesn't even need a Halloween costume. All he needs is a Victorian century walking coat. He doesn't have to do the makeup. He looks like Nosferatu.
He's definitely vampiric.
Very. The undead, the living dead.
But I mean, 110% Slytherin there, though.
Yeah. By the way, before you go on, I want to thank Delusional for the $5 tip over on Rumble. Thank you. $12 2028. In your delusional dreams, delusional.
2028 for what? What's he running for?
I wouldn't even vote for him for dog catcher.
Mayor of Palos. He might win that one.
I wonder if he's subletting the Bridgeport apartment or if he just like moved out the day after the election and did his leave. It was a month to month.
Yeah, there's no way he owned that. So 6 constituents who sued Aldermort Jim Gardner of the 45th Ward for blocking them or deleting their critical comments of him on his Facebook page scored a key win in their ongoing legal battle this week. The residents' lawsuit filed in 2021 alleged Gardner violated the First Amendment by silencing his critics, even though he was aware of the laws barring him from doing so.
It's a big no-no. If you're a public official, public representative, you don't get to shut down your critics on any social media platform.
Well, not on your official ones.
Well, yeah, your official ones. But look, most of them are. I don't think, Ed. I think also their personal ones. I don't think they're allowed to. As long as you're in public service. If you're in public service, you're not allowed to shut down your critics on any platform because go ahead.
If you have an account that's like, for example, representing the 45th Ward, that you cannot discriminate on. But if he's got like a campaign account or a personal account separate from that, that's questionable as to whether he can block you on those.
I'll look into it.
Because he's keeping them separate.
But once you're actually elected, you don't have a campaign website anymore because you're officially a public servant and you're not supposed to shut down criticism or question. Hey, look, is it about criticisms? Yes, but it's also about legitimate conversation people have in regards to decisions he's making and abuse that he's engaged in that he just doesn't want to answer. And I think that I'll look into that. I'm not going to disagree with you on it, but I have a feeling that once you are elected, if you have a personal page anyway, you still got to be able to, you got to accept the commentary. You can't shut people down and censor them, I don't think. But I'll look into it. I've been wrong before.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out because I mean, some of our older people have more than one account, and some of them have been using that defense. Well, this one's my personal account. This one's my official account as an alder person. So,
and isn't it interesting that they're using that excuse instead of saying, well, you know what? Actually, I do believe people have a right to criticize me, and I'm not going to try to use that blanket immunity of, well, this is my personal site as opposed to my public site to shut people down. Do your fucking job, engage with the public. If they disagree with you, tell us why you're right and why we're wrong. Don't use it as a shield to get away with atrocious behavior, as this guy's been engaged in forever over in Jefferson Park, Copland.
Yeah, so what does it say? Oh, the far northwest side alderman now faces a trial to determine if he will pay the critics for the violation. Okay. District Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman wrote in her decision, Gardner, who has since unblocked all of the constituents, is also not allowed to block any future constituents from his page, the judge wrote. Given the robust and evolving consensus in the case law and the specific guidance from the Chicago Board of Ethics that Gardner's conduct was violating plaintiffs' rights, it is clear that the reasonable alderman in his position knew or should have known that deleting comments and blocking users on his official alderman Facebook page ran afoul of the First Amendment, Coleman wrote.
You know what, Ed? It was just last year before the election that I was posting comments on Lori Lightfoot's press briefing videos on Facebook, and I got shut down as spam. And it wasn't Facebook monitoring the comment section of the live feed at City Hall. Those are her representatives on the other end of her chat sending out the video stream. She was doing this regularly, shutting down critics in the comments, saying that it was spam when it obviously wasn't. But, who's going to take the time to try to get anybody at Facebook to pay attention? Nobody, because you can't contact them anyway. And what reminded me of this, Dick on Rockfin saying, I watched my anti-Hillary comments disappearing in real time within seconds during the 2016 primary. He should just say Facebook did it. Yeah.
He could. Yeah. But anyway, that's all we needed to talk about Aldermort for the time being. We know that he's still a target in a federal investigation, and there's a public
menace.
And a public menace.
And a real life villain.
And a real life member of Slytherin. Yes. That's it. That's the show.
Hey, did you ever end up seeing did you go with us when we did the review on Dial of Destiny? You did. You were there with us.
Yeah.
We all three went. I forgot because I remember you came to one of them. I rewatched for the second time since I saw it originally, Dial of Destiny this weekend with my nephews who hadn't seen it, and it finally struck me what was off with that movie. That movie has a much heavier emotional weight throughout it than any of the other movies. And I think that's because James Mangold directed it. He did the same thing with Logan, the movie about Wolverine with Hugh Jackman in his older years. It didn't have the lighthearted, spirit of adventure. I mean, Indy was literally he almost didn't want to go along. It's like he had an obligation to chase his goddaughter, Helena, through that movie to protect her and Teddy, the kid that was with her. And it struck me. And that's not a bad thing, but it's like, it didn't, the movie, I appreciated it a little bit more, but that's what struck me is what was off when we first saw it was that it didn't have the same fun spirit that the originals did, because Harrison wanted to approach his character, in his older years and have all the heavy weight of losing his son and his marriage dissolving. And it's that's not like an Indiana, well, at least not the previous Indiana Jones movies. But I just thought I'd share that since it was fresh in my memory. A little pop culture movie commentary there. And if you haven't seen Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, everybody, it's on streaming now, and it's worth checking out if you're a Harrison Ford fan.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a decent ending. I mean, it wasn't Last Crusade.
No,
but as far as
rousing and fun, I mean, there was humor in there where he's off with his father and they're joking and stuff. It's weight. It was a heavy weight in this one because of all the losses he'd suffered, and that's not what an Indiana Jones movie usually, presents in the spirit of adventure.
Yeah. Oh, and while we're talking movies, I did finally get to see The Batman. And I didn't hate it, but it's he was totally emo Batman.
Completely wrong for the role. He's no Bruce Wayne.
I was I didn't mind hearing the Nirvana music at the front.
Did. I just thought it was.
But I mean, that's just because I like that music. But okay. I was okay, I see where they're going with this character, and in some ways I felt he was trying to do a bad impression of Christian Bale's Batman, very moody and we understood it was year 2, the Long Halloween style Batman.
He's the world's greatest detective and he didn't understand Spanish. No, yeah. But the Penguin had to correct him in regards to the. It's just like, look at that movie. Nothing Batman did in that movie until the very last act. He didn't solve any of the mysteries.
No,
He basically, everything happened because he did not know how to do his job, as opposed to Dark Knight.
Right.
I mean, you saw Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne do his detective work, and it's like, and that was his second year as Batman. Dark Knight happened shortly after Batman Begins. So I just think, first of all, I'm sorry, Bruce Wayne's not emo. He's not a skinny little guy like Robert Pattinson. And
they just wrote him way different.
And the costume was ass. The costume was absolute ass. And again, Christian Bale and my favorite.
Well, here I am.
Yeah, I mean it's terrible that Zack Snyder didn't get to make Justice League 2, because
finale.
I mean that whole ethos and the actors that they had in there, that they were nailing it.
It was perfect, man. It's the executives and the empty suits at Warner Brothers second guessing. I think Zack Snyder is as much of a creative genius as Christopher Nolan, Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, and different directors in different genres. But Zack Snyder is what you call a visionary director. And to set all that up and to be literally cut off at the knees, you get all these fans who finally see it done right. It's like you basically giving your fans blue balls by not letting the guy finish what he had set up satisfactorily. I mean, we were very, very grateful to see his version of Justice League, his cut of Justice League. That is a miracle that they let him finish that movie. But, they had to make money on streaming, so it was more of a financial decision. But, right now, I think Warner Brothers, the DC universe at Warner Brothers is in an absolute free fall. And it's decisions like this to just second guess the original creatives and take characters in directions that aren't really faithful to their origins, like emo Batman with Robert Pattinson. That I know that film had a big following, and I thought visually it was stunning. I will give the Batman credit, visually stunning. And the best part of that movie was Colin Farrell's Oswald Cobblepot. I wish we had gotten a chance to see Colin Farrell's Oswald Cobblepot up against Ben Affleck's Batman in the Snyderverse, because that's how you do the Penguin in real life. He's a gangster. He's a club owner. He doesn't have all the accoutrement of the silly, Penguin stuff. He's just a gangster.
That's what I'm like, there were elements in this version, in this take of Batman, and one was like, okay, this would be fine as a one-off, one artist's interpretation of a Batman story, and this is how he portrayed him. And and my brain was like, this dude, it's like he's totally a rookie in this movie. Batman is. he's still learning on the job. Is the way I was seeing this whole plot. So I wasn't letting that bother me too much. But he was totally an unfinished version of himself as Batman.
At the peril of Gotham City. I mean, the end of the movie, the city's underwater because of all. I mean, and that's. Look, I like fallible heroes. We clearly want to see heroes that are challenged, that fail, that learn. But even in the mythos of Batman, Ed, Batman's second year, he's a rookie in his first year. And by the time you're in your second year and the public actually knows about you, at least in the comic book mythology, I think the ways that they handled Bruce Wayne and Batman were completely wrong. Everything else about the movie The Batman, from the production values to Colin Farrell to even Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle, I think she did an admirable job. I just thought everything at the center of the movie with Robert Pattinson playing the character, and I don't dislike Robert Pattinson. Just he's not the guy you cast to portray this legendary hero. So anyway,
the many parts of the movie, basically it was like ASMR Batman, and I was like so glad I had the closed captioning on while I was watching it, because
what does that stand for? What does ASMR stand for?
Audio something. They whisper. They're whispering, basically.
Yeah.
He's whispering as Batman, doing his best Christian Bale impersonation, except totally emo version.
Yeah, he didn't have any charisma.
No,
in either part, in either as Batman or Bruce Wayne. A lot of people and I guess this is a fair point, Christian Bale may have performed better as Bruce Wayne than he did Batman. And people say that Ben Affleck performed better as Batman than Bruce Wayne. Although I really liked Ben Affleck's take when he was out of the mask as Bruce Wayne, kind of playing the...
Yeah, I think Affleck had the best balance between the two, and he definitely he nailed the older Batman situation, and his fight scenes were really well choreographed.
And he was literally like, he embodied the most physically intimidating embodiment of Batman that you would have never imagined wearing an adaptation of the comic book gray suit. You know, when we think of like the literal adaptation of that look, it's Adam West's Batman. Oh, you can't do the gray suit with the black collar and everything. And it's like, oh yeah, you can if you put it in Zack Snyder's hands with the costume designers and casting it with someone who's over 6 feet tall, like built like a tank. That's how you do it right. So anyway, that's our movie talk.
That was our movie talk, and I know that we robbed you of it last time. So Kathy, I'm just going to throw this in here at the beginning here, but I kind of want to do that Batman outro next because we're talking about Batman. But
Get out and don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
But I'm just going to switch over to the other thing and do the hockey patch.
What did I miss?
I like that.
I didn't see the video. What did I miss?
Oh, you'll probably hear it in a second here. It was the nuns just saying, get out.
Oh, yeah.
And there goes Jerry's microphone on cue. And she's going, get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves. And his audio is back in 3, 2, 1. There it is.
Whenever I see that nun clip, it's funny because I think of Kathy Powers, and she's like our maternal influence over the show.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll do actually, I just realized that Halloween falls on a Tuesday this year, Jerry. So I'm thinking maybe we'll need to try and do a special show, and maybe Kathy Powers could dress up as a nun and do a live read of the nun telling us to get out. Don't come back until we've redeemed ourselves.
I wonder if we can get Kira to join us. I know she's busy, and I know she's still dealing with maternity leave with her newborn.
Maybe their whole family can log in for a Halloween special.
Even for just a little while. We have to figure out and plan something fun.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for sticking with us. I know you have a choice in streaming programs, and I thank you for flying Air Chicago Corner. Tune in on Friday, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, where Jerry will be flying the space bus and avoiding the asteroids and all of Elon's little GPS and internet satellites. And I hope that we entertained, and I hope you will enjoy the next program on Friday when I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be something.
I think it's going to be a busy news week. Something tells me it got off to a busy start. So
yeah,
we'll have more to talk about, entertain and inform you.
So once again, thank you for joining us. If you're ever trying to find us, head over to chicagocornertv.com. We try to stream the program there, but if we're not streaming on the website, there will be a link to where we are streaming. And there are links for all kinds of useful things, including how to report a pothole, where to get mutual aid. You can look at our Chicago Corner manifesto that we had when the candidates were running for mayor to see where, the types of things that we want our mayor to be doing. There's a link to the Brandon Bingo card. You can play along at home, load your own card. There is a link to our merch store, which is over on Fourth Wall. And if you want to get there, you can also type in chicagocornertv.com/shop. So thanks once again for joining us, and we'll see you on Friday.
Good night, everybody.
We're trying to help you.
I don't need help. What gives you the right? What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. If you would like to be a guest on Chicago Corner, please email our host, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv.